Every step in this room contains secrets that we have never dared to discover. Today, I invite you to join me in a mysterious journey, where mysterious sounds ring out every time darkness covers, and where ghosts still wander, unable to escape. If this story makes you shiver, don't forget to click subscribe, so you don't miss other mysterious stories. Click like if you feel the cold air of footsteps in the dark. Please share this story with your friends so they can feel the same, and leave a comment below with your opinion about the story, what you think and what you feel from this story. There are things we never want to believe, but we still have to face it. I remember that first night in that room very clearly. It was a simple, small room, but it exuded a strange feeling that was hard to describe in words. The hallway was long and pitch black, seemingly without end, as if it stretched on endlessly, forever. The old walls of the building are like a lifeless shell, surrounding souls that have not yet passed away, keeping mysteries locked up for decades. When I first walked in, the air was heavy and stuffy, making me feel cold. Dim lights flickered outside the windows, as if they were also afraid of something happening in this building. Every step I took seemed to echo more than usual, and sometimes, I felt like someone was watching me from behind, even though I couldn't see anyone. I decided to rent this room because it's cheap and located in a quiet area, an ideal place to focus on work. But from the first moment I walked in, I felt something wasn't right. The building's hallway was like a nightmare, and the surrounding space seemed like it was waiting for something scary to happen. In the evenings, when the room became completely silent, I began to hear footsteps. At first it was just small, faint sounds. But gradually, they became clearer, as if someone was walking in the hallway, each step weighing down the air. I can't explain that feeling. Those steps were not at all like the sound of a normal person, but were purposeful, heavy, and determined steps. Occasionally, I thought I heard a whispering voice, but when I turned around, there was no one. The cold feeling still prevailed, and I became more and more worried. I started to feel that something wasn't right, an invisible presence that I couldn't see, but could feel. Every night, after the clock struck 9 o'clock, those footsteps echoed, and each time they came closer, I felt like there was a ghost lingering around me. One night, while I was working late, there was suddenly a loud noise from the end of the hallway. Those footsteps were not like every other night, it is clearer, stronger. It felt like someone was standing right in front of my door, listening to my every move. My heart pounded, I stood up, holding the door handle tightly. The footsteps got closer and closer, as if a terrifying presence was approaching me. I told myself that if I just opened the door, I would see everything clearly. But what is waiting for me out there? One person? A ghost? Or just my own imagination? I don't open the door. Everything around me became quiet, as if nothing had happened. But deep inside, I knew that something had changed. This building, this room, is not the peaceful place I thought it would be. It contains indelible memories, souls that have not yet passed away, footsteps that never stop. I will never get rid of them. I began to feel that presence from the third evening in the room. At first, it was just gentle breezes passing through the old window, but then they were not like normal breezes. Those winds had a strange feeling, as if they were trying to circle me, trying to find a way into the room. The only light in the room was a dim table lamp, flickering as if in exhaustion. I often have to get up and adjust the light bulb, but every time I return to work, a cold feeling invades my body, as if someone is standing behind me, just a few steps away. I couldn't get rid of that strange feeling, even though I tried my best to convince myself that it was just an imaginary image. But when night came, the silence of the building made my fear double. The endless hallway was quiet, with no sound other than my own breathing, but sometimes, I heard footsteps echoing from somewhere in the darkness. One night, while I was sitting at work, I suddenly heard a strange noise. It was the sound of a window opening slightly, not because of the wind, but it seemed like a purposeful movement. I quickly stood up, walked closer to the window, but saw nothing but darkness outside. I wonder if I heard wrong? Or is someone watching me from the outside? But I can't find any evidence to support that idea. I returned to work, my heart pounding. Every time I looked out the window, I felt that strange feeling, the feeling like there were a pair of eyes watching me. The light is dim, not enough to illuminate a small corner of the room. Everything was so quiet that I could hear my palms sweating, my own breathing, as if the room was muffling every sound other than what I felt. As the night gradually passed, I could no longer maintain my original composure. I felt more and more threatened by the silence in the room. Every time I hear footsteps ringing again, I don't dare stand up to look outside. I don't want to face something I know I can't explain. I could only sit there, with tension rising inside me, and anxiety washing over me like a wave. Day after day, I continued to work, but could not escape that strange feeling. The room seemed to become an invisible trap, making me feel increasingly lonely and afraid. Every night, I heard more and more clearly strange footsteps in the hallway, as if someone was watching me from behind, from the darkness. I tried going out and walking down the hallway to check, but every time I did, I only saw silence. At one point, I couldn't tell if I was actually hearing those footsteps or just imagining them. One night, while working late, I decided to stop letting fear control me. I stood up, took a deep breath and walked out into the hallway. The hallway lights are weak, only enough to illuminate a short distance. Every step I take echoes in the empty space. I went through each room, but all the doors were closed, there was no sign that anyone was there. When I turned around, suddenly, I felt a cold wind pass by me, from somewhere in the darkness. I turned around and saw a shadowy figure at the end of the hallway. It wasn't clear, just a dark streak, but enough to scare me. I stood frozen, not daring to move. That figure seemed to be moving closer to me, step by step, slowly, hauntingly. Every second passed like a century, and I didn't know what to do. I could feel its presence, and I knew, if I stepped closer, I would be faced with something I could not imagine. But I can't stand there forever. I turned around and ran back to my room, closing the door tightly. Every night, the fear grew. The footsteps became clearer and clearer, and I could do nothing but sit still, not daring to leave the room. That strange feeling never goes away. Every night, I hear footsteps, gentle but determined, as if a presence is approaching me step by step. Once again, I tried to stand up and open the door, but this time I knew I wouldn't be facing anyone. I'm not scared anymore, I just want confirmation that something is out there. Tonight, I don't dare work as long as before. I sat down on the chair and tried to work, but my mind kept spinning. The footsteps were no longer a faint sound. They were clear and strong, as if someone was approaching me. With each step, I clearly felt every vibration in the air, every gentle movement of the surrounding space. I didn't dare to turn back, nor did I dare to move. A cold feeling enveloped me, to the point where I felt like my whole body was paralyzed. Although the room remained quiet, I knew I was not alone. I began to feel my breathing like a vigil in the night, my heartbeat beating strongly in my chest. A heavy feeling, as if there was something invisible pressing down on me, invisible but very real. Every night, those footsteps echoed, getting closer and closer, even though I tried locking the door, even pushing a table in front of the window. But it seems like the footsteps never stop. That night, I couldn't stand it anymore. I decided, despite my fear, to face something I had been trying to avoid. I stood up, my hands cold with fear, but I knew I couldn't let my anxiety control me anymore. I have to clarify everything, have to know if it's just my imagination or not. I walked out, step by step, carefully, as if afraid something terrible would happen the moment I let my guard down. I walked slowly, approaching the end of the hallway. Those footsteps kept ringing in my head, they seemed to scream in the quiet space, making me feel like everything became vague and unclear. I stopped right in front of my room, not daring to continue, but when I looked back, I felt a cold gaze staring at me from the darkness. A shadow that was vague, unclear, but made me unable to take my eyes off it. It was moving, gently but hauntingly, as if there was no gravity, no space. Just an undeniable presence, an invisible being passing over me that I couldn't touch or touch. Suddenly, I heard a noise. It was footsteps, but this time they were so close that I could feel the movement of the air as it entered my room. I feel like an invisible curtain is being pulled back, trapping me in this space. Everything seemed to awaken, but in a terrifying state of chaos. These footsteps were no longer just sounds. They became something real, a presence I could no longer avoid. The door to my room is slowly opening. There was no sound, no creaking of the door, just the gradual opening of the door, as if an invisible force was pushing it. Outside, the hallway was quiet again. But the cold feeling from outside was like an electric current running through my body, making me unable to move. I stood there, silent, not daring to breathe loudly, just listening to the strange sounds outside. Suddenly, I heard a whisper. A voice, soft, as if someone was standing right behind me. I turned around, but saw nothing, only cold air and silence, as if I were standing in the middle of an endless, lifeless space. I can't face it anymore. Somehow, I was forced to run away. Run out of this room, run out of this building. But as soon as I turned around, I felt something. A presence was following me from behind, watching my every step. I didn't turn back anymore, walking faster and faster, until I couldn't hear those footsteps anymore. I went outside the building, breathing the fresh air of the city, feeling safe, but fear still stuck with me. I don't know what it is, but I'm sure I haven't been alone this whole time. And every time I think about those steps, I know they will never stop. Tension increases with each passing minute. The feeling of fear is no longer just a passing feeling. It has become a part of me, ingrained in every thought, every breath, like a shadow that never leaves. Every night, I can't escape the sound of footsteps. Those footsteps seem to be following me, catching up with me, no matter what I do. It felt like an invisible force was pulling me into another dimension. The space in my room seemed to get smaller every night. The silence in the hallway became a scary sound, echoing deep inside my mind. Even if I sat still, the brightest light in the room couldn't dispel that feeling. Just blinking my eyes, I imagined silhouettes, sounds, things that couldn't be seen but were very real. One night, after hearing the usual footsteps, I felt the coldness spreading from outside the room door. This time, I couldn't bear it anymore. I stood up, my hands shaking as I grabbed the doorknob. It felt as if something was standing right out there, watching my every move. When I opened the door, I saw nothing but darkness. The entire hallway was as quiet as dead. But I feel something. I couldn't see it, I couldn't hear it, but I felt that presence, as if someone was standing next to me, just a few feet away. The silence became heavy, the space suddenly became so stuffy that I couldn't breathe. The feeling that I was being watched kept me from standing still. It got to the point where I had to step out, but didn't dare go too far. Suddenly, a loud noise rang out from inside my room. The sound of something falling to the ground. My heart stopped beating as I hurried back. When I entered the room, I just saw an item fall to the floor, but the strange thing was, I didn't remember putting it there. Objects in the room seemed to move on their own, for no reasonable reason. I was restless, feeling overwhelmed as I couldn't understand everything that was happening. That darkness still surrounds me, lurking in every corner of space. I tried to convince myself that it was just my imagination, but reality remained unchanged. Those footsteps continued to echo, getting closer every night. I cannot explain why this happened. Am I going crazy, or is there something really out there? Something was watching me from the darkness, invisible but always present. This feeling, this presence, couldn't be just a coincidence. The silence in the night became more and more terrifying. I didn't dare leave the room, didn't dare take my eyes off the door. Every minute passed like a long hour. The darkness within me became deeper, and I knew that I could not escape it. Every night, my feeling of insecurity grew. Those steps are no longer something I can ignore. They are no longer faint, no longer hidden, but increasingly clearer and stronger. I felt every little noise, like a cold air blowing, as if someone was quietly walking around my room, observing me. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched from somewhere in the dark. Even though I tried to concentrate on my work, every time I moved, I heard those footsteps ringing in my ears, making me unable to calm down. I tried opening the door, but again, there was only darkness outside. I stared into space, feeling as if someone was passing me, but I couldn't see them. Those footsteps were coming closer, clearer every second, as if something invisible was waiting for me. I decided that no matter what happens, I will no longer let fear control me. I relaxed my hands and walked out into the hallway. The dim hallway lights and weak light from the emergency sign at the end of the hallway made the space even colder and quieter. I walked step by step, my legs were shaking, but I couldn't stop. A cold wind suddenly blew past, making my hair stand on end. I stopped and stood still for a moment, eyes wide open, searching for any sign of a presence out there. Suddenly, I heard a noise from far away. It was footsteps, but this time, they weren't just coming from the end of the hallway. The footsteps seemed to come from behind me, as if someone was moving right behind me. The cold feeling surged, and I didn't dare turn back. A strange fear spread through me, making me unable to move. Each step was clear, closer, as if someone was approaching me, walking slowly but decisively. But when I turned around, I didn't see anyone. The silence in the hallways was the worst. It was as if it was swallowing me, surrounding me in a space with no escape. The steps have stopped, but I know they will start again. I didn't dare go back to my room, didn't dare close the door. I stood there, confused, feeling as if I had been caught in a loop I couldn't escape from. I returned to the office and looked in the mirror, my image reflected in it. I can't recognize myself anymore. I looked like a haunted person, my eyes were sunken, my face pale. I couldn't imagine living through each day like that. This fear is not only making me tired, it is making me lose my sense of reality. I don't know, am I crazy, or is something really chasing me, threatening me? As I tried to go back to work, I suddenly heard a noise from the floor. It was the sound of footsteps, echoing from beneath my feet. I stood still, not daring to move, holding the table tightly. A cold wind blew again, and I felt that presence, right below me, as if someone was standing right on the floor. I can't bear it anymore. I bent down, pressed my hand against the cold floor, and felt a slight vibration. They are not hallucinations. They are really here. Those steps, those physical movements, made me so confused that I couldn't think of anything but fear. I can't stop anymore. I cannot live with this fear any longer. The next night, I couldn't sleep. Every noise around me startled me. I stood up, unable to bear it anymore. This time, I am determined to find the truth, no matter what. I opened the door and walked out into the hallway. The hallway lights were dim, only the light from the emergency sign remained, as weak as the only ray of hope in the dark night. I walked towards the end of the hallway, where I always heard those footsteps. Every step I took seemed to echo in the empty space. I stopped for a moment, listening. The footsteps stopped, there was no more sound. It felt like everything around me was quiet, like there was something waiting for me. I took a step forward, and suddenly, a loud noise rang out behind me. I turned around, but there was no one. I feel something very real, very close. I couldn't see it, but I knew it was there, watching me from the darkness. I can't stand any more. A painful feeling ran through me, as if something invisible was squeezing me, suffocating me. I went back to my room, closed the door and sat down on the chair. I didn't dare look out the window, didn't dare look into the darkness outside. All I can do is wait. The footsteps still echoed in my head. Even though I don't hear them, I feel that presence, always by my side. And I know, no matter what I do, it will never leave me. I started to feel that I was no longer myself. Those footsteps, those sounds, they all seemed to be eating away at me, gradually taking away my vitality little by little. Every night, I don't dare turn off the light, afraid that in the darkness, something will appear, like a never-ending nightmare. The dim light in the room seemed to be the only thing that helped me feel safe, even though I knew it couldn't stop the darkness lurking somewhere. I tried to stay away from the dark areas of the building, but the fear still wouldn't leave me. Wherever I go, it follows me. That feeling, that invisible yet very real presence, seemed to surround me all the time. Especially when night comes, when everything is quiet, those footsteps begin again. Once again, they rang out, this time clearer than ever, stronger, closer to me. How many times have I asked myself, am I crazy? But the fear in my heart did not allow me to stop and find a reasonable explanation. Those footsteps, they are real. I can't deny them anymore. Late one night, I decided to do something I had never dared to try before. I would search for the source of those footsteps. I can't continue to live in the dark, I can't live forever with this uncertainty. If something exists in this building, I will find it. I stood up, my hands shaking, but determination overcame all my fears. I left the room, carefully looking into the dark corners around me, not daring to let my guard down. The dark hallway enveloped me like a quiet tomb, leaving only the sound of my footsteps echoing. I walked towards the end of the hallway, where I had heard those footsteps. The cold feeling suddenly increased, making me more cautious. Tonight, I have the feeling that I am not alone. That presence, it was near me, following my every step. As I approached the place where I felt the footsteps begin, I stopped and listened. The entire hallway was silent, only the sound of my breathing echoed in the empty space. I started to feel suspicious, am I imagining it all? But as soon as I turned around, I saw it. A shadowy figure stood silently in the darkness, as if waiting for me. I can't move. My eyes were glued to that shadow, a strange feeling rose within me. It wasn't a person, but it wasn't an inanimate object either. It just stood there, as if it was watching me, following my every move. I didn't dare step closer, but I couldn't turn away either. I stood there, silent, not daring to breathe loudly, trying to determine if what I was seeing was real or not. Strangely enough, the figure didn't move. It just stood still, without any movement, but I felt its presence clearly. The feeling that there was something invisible, but present, made me unable to breathe. I took a step back, but immediately, footsteps sounded again, this time they came from behind me. There's no time to think anymore. I turned around and ran. Just like that, I rushed through the dark hallway, not daring to look back. Every running step echoed in the quiet space, as if those footsteps were still chasing me, following my every breath. When I reached the end of the hallway, I didn't dare stop. But something happened. I suddenly realized that, in this space, I cannot run forever. Everything around me became hazy. I looked at the door at the end of the hallway, but when I got closer, it wasn't the door I thought it was. It's a wall. An invisible wall blocked my path, and now I can't turn back. I can't understand. Everything around me seemed to have turned into a trap, a spiral from which I could not escape. Those footsteps are not noise. They are something real, can be felt, can be touched, but cannot be seen. And at that moment, I realized that I couldn't continue to run away. I have to face it. No matter what, I will never escape these footsteps that I cannot understand, but follow me every night. Days after I left the building, I still couldn't shake that feeling. Even though I left, those footsteps still haunted me, like a part of me was stuck there, unable to leave. Every time I pass through a quiet hallway, my heart beats faster, and I feel as if I'm going back, returning to those nights that I can never forget. I cannot explain what happened. Have I lost my mind, or is there something real in that building? No one can provide me an answer. The landlord did not pay any attention to my complaints, and I could not ask him to explain further. Everything is shrouded in a fog of uncertainty and fear. I tried to forget, but that darkness still wouldn't let go. I couldn't escape those footsteps, no matter how far I ran. Sometimes, in my dreams, I return to that room, hearing footsteps approaching, quietly like a warning. I don't know how long I will live with this feeling, but one thing I know is that I cannot live peacefully without understanding everything. One night, while I was sitting alone in the living room, I suddenly heard a noise. It was a familiar sound, a footstep. At first I thought I was imagining it, but no. It was clear, strong, echoing in the silent space of the house. I stood up, walked towards the window, and looked out. Only darkness, no one. But the footsteps continued. This time, I decided I couldn't continue living in fear anymore. I have to face this, no matter what. I took out my phone and recorded the video I recorded earlier. I replayed the video from the surveillance camera in the old office. A feeling of guilt rose within me when I saw what I had recorded. There was nothing but darkness, but I could clearly hear footsteps echoing in the empty space. That feeling, that invisible presence, continued to linger in my mind. And then, I suddenly realized something. Those footsteps weren't something that could be explained by theory or science. It wasn't because of an intruder or a system failure. Perhaps, they are not a physical phenomenon that I can understand. Part of me understood that I had overlooked something important, but I couldn't face it. When I no longer had the strength to fight the thoughts, I decided to find the truth. I returned to the building on a rainy day, trying to reach the landlord again. The feeling of fear still haunts me, but I cannot live in this doubt forever. I need an explanation, I said, my voice uncertain. What happened there? The homeowner just looked at me, his eyes cold. This building has been around for a long time, he replied. There are things you can't explain. And I can't help you. Nothing has changed. I didn't find the answer I needed. The footsteps still pursue me, unable to stop. And I understand that I have left that place, but that place has never left me. That feeling, the feeling of being watched, haunted, continues, tormenting me every night. One evening, I was walking through a quiet hallway, and I heard footsteps. They are not imaginary. I don't want to hide anymore. I stopped, listened to those footsteps, and then, I decided to face it. Every step I took, those footsteps echoed, clearer and closer. This time, I'm not afraid. I won't back down anymore. I will not let fear control me anymore. I walked forward, and when I turned back, I couldn't see a soul. Just me and the darkness. But, part of me understands that, no matter what I do, that presence will never leave me. My hands shook as I held the flashlight, and I headed downstairs again. Darkness covered the basement, only the weak light from the light bulb on the ceiling was the only thing that helped me clearly see the shelves and furniture around there. With every step I took, I felt the coldness of the stone wall and the old wooden planks, but this time there was a different feeling of heaviness, as if something was watching me from the darkness, just waiting for me to turn around to continue. The whisper rang out again, closer, clearer, making me stop. My flashlight flashed hastily around the space, and I noticed there was no one there. However, a cold and eerie feeling still covers this place. Those voices were inexplicable. They are not echoes from outside, not noise from the building's water system or aging infrastructure. They were like conversations, vague whispers, a dialogue between people I couldn't see. I suddenly felt lost in this space, where the weak light could not dispel the dense darkness surrounding me. I kept walking, but each step made me feel like something invisible was pushing me deeper into the depths. I tried to act calm, convincing myself that everything had a logical reason. But the tension in my body grew more and more, and I began to feel a terrifying truth: those voices were not my imagination. They are real. And they're getting closer. This time, I couldn't ignore it anymore. I decided to clarify everything. Every night, those voices rang out, unmistakable, as if they were trying to communicate with me from somewhere in the darkness. I decided to put a small tape recorder in the basement, to record any sounds. If there was someone, or if something happened, at least I would have proof. That night, I made up my mind, went down to the basement, flashlight in hand, tape recorder turned on. Everything around me was silent, except for the sounds of my footsteps echoing off the walls. I feel like this space is swallowing everything, and there's no way out. When I put the recorder down in a dark corner, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching me. The stone walls, cold and damp, seemed to be sucking all the light into themselves. Once again, I heard voices. But this time, it's not like the previous times. They are no longer ambiguous. They are clearer, closer. It was as if there was someone standing right next to me, talking but invisible. My heart pounded in my chest, and I felt the coldness engulf me, making my skin rise in waves. I stood still, not daring to move, my eyes still wide open, trying to hear every word clearly. But suddenly, a cold wind blew past, making me shiver. That whisper fell silent, as if someone was standing right there, waiting for me. A long moment passed. I didn't dare move, didn't dare breathe loudly. And then, as I turned around, my flashlight flashed in the darkness, illuminating a scene I never expected. I saw a figure, not clear, just a blurry shape, standing right in front of me. It was a dark figure, no face, just a twisted shape, as if something was lurking in the darkness, not yet fully formed. My eyes couldn't believe what they were seeing, and my heart felt like it was about to jump out of my chest. I wanted to run away, but my body felt frozen, unable to move. That figure said nothing, made no sound, just stood silently, but I could feel a threat, an invisible force spreading from it. A feeling of despair enveloped me. I couldn't run, I couldn't scream, I just stood there, looking into the darkness that was slowly swallowing me. And then, a loud noise rang out from behind me, a sound like something falling to the floor. I turned around, but when I looked, there was nothing but darkness, no trace of what had just happened. But that shadow is still there, waiting for me, always there, as if I can never escape it. I couldn't take my eyes off that darkness, the shadowy shape, as if it were moving, slowly but surely retreating deeper into the darkness. Each beat in my chest was like a drum echoing in the quiet room, evoking a feeling of extreme fear. I couldn't determine what it was, whether it was a person or something invisible, but I certainly couldn't see through it. The feeling of being watched grew stronger, as if there was a presence standing there, lurking in the shadows, observing me little by little. I felt my arms and legs numb, cold sweat pouring down my spine, and the cold feeling from the stone walls seemed to want to bury me in this space. Those voices, those strange sounds that I couldn't explain, began to echo again, but this time they were no longer faint. They were clearer, as if they were trying to call out to me, forcing me to listen. I told myself to stay calm, but my body betrayed me. I clutched the flashlight in my hand, my palms wet with sweat. Suddenly, the shape moved again, receding into the darkness once more. I didn't dare follow, but I couldn't move, as if there was an invisible force holding me back, not letting me go in that direction. My heartbeat was pounding in my ears, and I felt my whole body tense with fear. All my senses have become more sensitive than ever. I heard a noise from behind, a very light rustle, like someone moving in the dark. I couldn't be sure, but I felt something cold pass near me, a strange feeling like a thin wind blowing, carrying a heavy breath. I looked into the darkness, trying to find any sign of that presence, but there was nothing but silent darkness. And then, the whisper rang out, again. This time, I couldn't distinguish the sounds anymore. The words became more vague, but their tone and rhythm became clearer and stronger. I can't help but hear them. They are here, almost right next to me, as if I could touch them if I just opened my mouth to speak. My vision began to blur, dark spots began to appear around my vision, as if a wave of despair was surrounding me, making it impossible to think clearly. I tried to look forward, where the blurry shape receded into the darkness, but that feeling kept following me, gnawing away at me little by little. The feeling of fear was rising, uncontrollable, and I felt like I was falling into a spiral with no way out. In that moment, I knew I couldn't continue standing here any longer. I can't bear this waiting anymore. I have to do something. I cannot let myself get caught up in this fear. I had to act, no matter what happened. With one last effort, I took a deep breath and walked towards the darkness, where the shape had just disappeared. I didn't know what I was doing, but I felt like I had no other choice. Every step I take, I try to listen to the sounds around me. Those voices still rang out, each time closer and clearer. I have to face them, whatever they may be. As I got closer, the light from the flashlight didn't seem enough to illuminate the entire space. The darkness felt like it was swallowing me whole. I saw something moving in the dark corner, a shadowy shape. It is not a person, not an object, but something invisible, unrecognizable. My heart was beating so fast that I couldn't hear anything but my own breathing. And then, suddenly, the darkness receded. A noise like a strong wind blew, and I saw something flash in the darkness. It was an image, a presence that I cannot describe. I can't understand it, but it makes me shiver. The feeling of being watched still doesn't let me go. Even though I tried to face the darkness, it did not leave me. Unreal footsteps, strange voices, and vague images still haunt me. It felt like I never left that building, never really left it. I still feel that darkness, somewhere in space, in every dark corner I pass. I don't know if I will ever understand everything, or if those ghosts will haunt me forever. But I also cannot forget the strange and desperate feeling I experienced in that house. And every time night comes, I can't help but feel the darkness, feel that presence, as an inseparable part of my life. Every night, as I listened to the silence of the building, I couldn't help but feel that I was surrounded. Those voices were not imaginary, not strange sounds my mind made. They are real, and they are here, in this very space. I told myself I needed to get away from it, but every time I tried to walk out the door, those shadows chased me. I can't explain it, but I feel them. An invisible force was pushing me back into the darkness. Late at night, I can clearly feel their presence, as if someone was standing right behind me, breathing evenly in a quiet space. That feeling, vague but undeniable, kept following me, getting closer and closer. And then, one night, as I was getting ready to go to bed, I heard footsteps. But not from the hallway or the basement. This time, they came from my own room. I stood up and walked towards the door, but there was only silence. I opened the door, looked into the space outside the room, but there was no one. The footsteps had stopped, but I felt the presence very close, as if someone was standing just outside of my vision. I didn't dare go out, didn't dare face that shadow. A shadow that I couldn't see, but could feel. I went back to the room, closed the door and locked it tight. I didn't dare breathe loudly, didn't dare move, as if even the slightest action would put me in a state I couldn't escape from. That feeling of fear kept increasing. Every night, I hear the footsteps again, but this time they are no longer simple. They became more complex, as if a presence was moving through the room, not just passing by but stopping, as if watching me from behind. I didn't dare turn around, didn't dare look into the darkness behind me, because I knew, if I did, I wouldn't be able to face what was waiting. And then, one night, as I was sitting in the dark, I heard a whisper. It wasn't the sound of footsteps anymore, but a voice. A voice seemed very close, as if right next to me. I heard every word clearly, even though I couldn't understand it. It's not a language I know, but of one thing I'm sure, it's not a human voice. My hand shook as I held the flashlight, but when I shined the light into the dark corner of the room, I saw nothing but deep darkness. The whispering continued, and I felt it enter my mind, forcing me to listen to the incomprehensible words. It felt as if something was pulling me into the depths of darkness, where I couldn't escape. One night later, I couldn't take it anymore. I decided I wouldn't leave, I wouldn't run away anymore. I have to face the truth, no matter what happens. I brought my tape recorder, determined to capture these strange sounds once and for all. I walked down to the basement, where I knew those voices always sounded, where darkness always filled me. This time, I was prepared. I sat down, put the recorder on the shelf, and waited. It was dark and the space was so quiet that I could hear my heart beating. This cold, quiet feeling was scary, but I still sat there, not moving, not making a sound. And then, the whisper rang out again. This time, I didn't panic anymore. I listened to every sound, every whisper. A voice sounded clearer, as if it was trying to speak to me. The words were vague and unclear, but I could feel the silence in that voice. A heavy feeling came over me, as if something was getting closer, but I couldn't see it. I couldn't tell if I was hearing something real, or just my own hallucination. And then, everything fell silent. Everything seemed to stop, as if time had stopped. I sat there, unable to move, unable to move. There were no voices, no footsteps, just dead silence surrounding me. I don't know what to do, I just know that I can't stay here any longer. But when I stood up, a cold wind suddenly blew, cold, as if something was passing by me. When I turned around, I saw it. A figure, standing right in the darkness, indistinct, but I could feel the presence. A coldness invaded my body, and I couldn't breathe. My heart was pounding, I wanted to run away, but I couldn't. It was not a person, not a physical being, but something invisible, yet felt, standing right in front of me. I can't get out. I can't run. That darkness and presence will never leave me. I couldn't close my eyes for many nights after that. The feeling of fear stuck with me like an inseparable shadow. Every step I took in the room, every time I opened the door, I felt something invisible, waiting for me, watching me, waiting for a moment to plunge me into darkness. Unclear voices and shadowy figures kept lingering in my mind, unable to get rid of them. One night, while I was standing in the store, the dim light on the ceiling flickered again as a sign of something about to happen. I turned back to look at the antique items displayed on the shelves. Each item seemed to have its own life, a strange silence, as if they were observing me, following my every move. This time, I couldn't bear it anymore. I decided I had to go down to the basement, looking for answers to everything, no matter what was waiting for me down there. A heavy feeling enveloped me, my heart pounded as I descended the stairs, and I felt silence, a threatening silence. This time, I didn't just bring a flashlight. I brought my tape recorder, determined to capture any sound, anything that might explain all I had experienced. But when I entered the basement, I felt that presence again, the eerie silence and the intense tension. The air in the basement is colder than ever. The dim light from the single light bulb on the ceiling made the space even more gloomy, as if it was hiding something mysterious, a truth that I never wanted to know. I walked, step by step slowly, letting the light from the flashlight illuminate every dark corner of the room. Everything around is silent, but I know, this silence is only on the surface. Something is waiting for me in the dark. As I walked past the shelves of antiques, a cold wind suddenly blew, strangely turning off the flashlight. Suddenly, the space fell into complete darkness. I couldn't see anything, but I could feel its presence. An invisible presence, lurking in the shadows, watched me from behind. My heart was pounding, my breathing was rapid. I tried to turn the flashlight back on, but my hand was shaking and I couldn't control it. The footsteps sounded again, this time clearer than ever. I couldn't be sure, but something was walking behind me. I turned around, but still saw nothing but darkness. Those voices rang out again, and this time, they were clearer, they were closer. Suddenly, I heard a loud noise, like something falling to the ground. My flashlight shined right where the noise was, but I couldn't see anything but a mess of stuff. My heart was pounding, I didn't dare to move, I didn't dare to speak. A feeling of unease prevailed, and I felt that presence, right next to me, as if someone stood quietly in the dark, watching me. My hands were shaking as I picked up the tape recorder and turned it on. I heard my own breathing, rapid, heavy, but then, I heard something again. Those voices. It's inexplicable, but they are lurking in this space. I can't tell them apart. Each voice is a vague, unpredictable whisper. They were like sounds from another world, from a dimension I couldn't reach. I can't bear it anymore. I ran, but couldn't escape the feeling that they were watching me. Those voices still echo in my head, and I can't stop hearing them. The feeling that I could never escape the darkness, could never escape that presence, paralyzed me. I don't know what I did to escape that basement. I just remember that I ran up the stairs, quickly, and didn't dare look back. When I got to the door, I quickly closed it and locked it. I didn't dare breathe loudly, I didn't dare move. This building swallowed me whole. Everything around me faded away, leaving only strange voices and darkness. Whenever I tried to step outside, I felt an invisible presence watching me. Those voices, those footsteps, and the shadow I couldn't see, all of it still existed, always waiting for me. And I know, no matter how much I run, I will never escape it. The darkness was deeply ingrained in my mind, and that obsession would follow me forever. Just when I thought I was free from that obsession, I found myself caught in an endless loop. Every night, when night falls, the building becomes different. The space became denser, darker, as if the darkness had a life of its own, moving and moving in space without my control. I can't explain it, but I know one thing: I am living in a space that does not belong to this world. That feeling has become stronger in recent nights. Every time I close the door, the space is still not as quiet as usual. The darkness always crept into every corner of the building, and when I stood back, I could feel them, invisible eyes watching me, waiting for me to make some mistake, to step into the darkness. I started to stay away from hidden corners, but every time I passed through the hallway, I heard footsteps. The sound of those footsteps was no longer a blur. They were clear, very clear, as if someone was standing right behind me, ready to follow me at any moment. Every time I turned around, I saw nothing but darkness, but the feeling was undeniable. There was something near me, right there in the darkness. I decided I couldn't live like this anymore. I was too scared, too confused. But no matter what I do, that darkness continues to haunt me. One night, when I couldn't take it anymore, I decided to face it. I brought a tape recorder and a flashlight, preparing to return to the basement, where the strange voices always started. When I went down the stairs this time, the air became thick and heavy, as if an invisible force was weighing me down. Flashlight lighting is not enough to dispel the darkness. Every step I took seemed to be swept away by darkness, pulling me into a place I couldn't escape. The footsteps sounded again, but this time they didn't just stop. They continued to follow me, closer, clearer. I didn't dare turn back, didn't dare face something I couldn't understand. However, as I stepped deeper into the basement, I heard those voices again, this time not a whisper like before, but a sharp, clear voice. It was the voice of a person, but there was something about it that wasn't human. The words couldn't be heard clearly, but I could feel the intensity in that voice. I stood still, trying to regain my composure, but my body betrayed me. I felt like I couldn't breathe, as if the air in this basement was slowly draining away. I couldn't move, couldn't open my mouth. Those voices kept echoing, vaguely, as if they were forcing me to listen to them. Suddenly, the light of my flashlight dimmed, then flared up again, casting eerie shadows on the antique shelves and storage bins. I looked into the darkness, and this time I saw more than just a shadowy figure. An image, a silhouette, appeared in the weak light of the flashlight. It didn't move, but I felt its presence, as if something was watching me from the darkness. Suddenly, a cold wind blew, and the light in my flashlight instantly went out. The room became silent, and I couldn't hear anything but my rapid breathing. I tried to turn the flashlight back on, but I couldn't. Everything around me was swallowed by darkness. I stood still, not daring to move, as if I moved, I would fall into that shadow. A small noise rang out from behind me. I turned around, but saw only darkness. The cold feeling invaded my body again. I could feel that shadow moving closer, approaching me little by little. Not a person, not a physical being, but something invisible, invisible but clearly felt. I stood still, not daring to breathe loudly. That darkness has taken over the space, has enveloped me. And then, I felt a cold breeze blow against my skin. It was like a whisper, a presence that I couldn't understand. I stood there, unable to move, unable to think of anything but the panic rising within me. That shadow didn't say anything, didn't move, but I could feel that it was there, right next to me. I couldn't run away, I couldn't do anything but stand still, feeling the overwhelming silence. There is no way out. There is no way out. I don't know if I will ever leave this building. The footsteps, the voices, the shadow in the darkness, all were ingrained in my mind, unable to be removed. Even if I leave, I will always remember that presence, that inexplicable darkness that waits for me, never leaving me alone. This building has made me a part of it, and I know that darkness will never leave me. It will always be watching me, a warning that I have gone too far to turn back. Even though I left the old building, the haunting from that place never left me. Every time I walked through the hallways of the new store, or any secluded space, I felt a slackness in the air, as if something was still watching me. I can't explain this feeling, but it persists, haunting me at random moments. The first day the new store opened, I felt a sense of relief, as if everything was going to be okay. New walls, bright light, and fresh air made me think I could start again. However, as I stood in this space, a sudden shiver invaded my body. I shook my head, telling myself that I was being too haunted, that all I felt were just echoes of what had passed. But no matter how hard I tried, I still felt an uneasy feeling, an unusual silence covering the space. Every time I passed by the empty rooms in the new store, I felt that presence, that darkness, as if it were lurking somewhere in the hidden corners. Especially at night, when the lights in the store make the space colder, I feel like I'm no longer myself. My eyes kept staring into dark corners, where there was nothing but darkness, and sometimes, I heard very light footsteps, as if someone was moving, even though I was sure I was alone. One night, when the store was closed and I was standing alone in the dark, I heard a strange sound. This time it wasn't vague whispering voices, but a click. It was the sound of something moving across the floor, something heavy, slow, as if coming towards me. I turned around, but there was only darkness, no one. I tried turning on the flashlight and shining around, but only saw empty shelves, old antiques, and no signs of intrusion. The feeling of shortness of breath came back, and I could feel that presence, something invisible, but very real, standing right behind me. I couldn't explain it, but part of me understood that it wasn't a hallucination. I had lived with this obsession for too long to not realize that this thing, that presence, was an inseparable part of that old building. I stood still for a moment, my heart pounding loudly in my chest. Then suddenly, I heard another click, this time clearer, closer. My heart beat faster, each breath became heavy and urgent. I didn't dare turn around, didn't dare look into the darkness behind me. It felt as if that shadow was backing away a bit, just waiting for me to turn around to approach me again. My feeling of obsession grew stronger and stronger. Strange sounds, blurry images, and inexplicable darkness all made me feel like I was living in a never-ending nightmare. Every time I close my eyes, I see those images, the footsteps, the voices, and the strange shadow in the darkness of the old building. Even though I left it, I still couldn't escape that presence. Every night, I looked into the store window, into the darkness outside. At one point, I thought I saw something moving in the darkness, a strange shape, as if someone was watching me from outside. That feeling was not an illusion, but a terrifying reality that I couldn't explain. I can't shake that feeling, no matter how hard I try. And then, one night, as I was sitting in my office, I suddenly heard a sound, a whisper, clearer and closer than ever. This time, it was no longer vague voices. It was a call, a whisper that seemed to be calling my name. I couldn't shake the feeling that it came from the very place I had escaped from the old building, from the darkness. My heart pounded as I realized that this thing, that shadow, would never let me go. It followed me all the way here, into this space where I thought I would be safe. But I know that no matter what I do, no matter how far I run, it will always be there, in the darkness, waiting for me to return. Finally, I decided to go back. I can't stand this feeling anymore. I have to face it, no matter what happens. I decided to return to the old building, the place I left, to find the truth, to understand why I couldn't escape this obsession. When I entered that building for the last time, my feeling was indescribable. The air was cold, gloomy, as if it had swallowed everything in it. I walked through every hallway, every empty room, and I knew that everything around me had changed. The old walls, the antique shelves, were all covered with a thick layer of dust, but that presence was still there, waiting for me. I heard footsteps again. This time, I didn't panic. I turned around and faced the darkness. Those footsteps approached me, and I felt something waiting for me from the darkness. Even though I couldn't see it, I knew I couldn't run away anymore. It's time for me to face the strange things, the darkness I've been trying to avoid. I stood in the darkness of the building, my heart pounding, feeling like an invisible force was pressing down on me, making the air thick and stuffy. My footsteps echoed on the wooden floor, each step seemed to last forever, as if space and time were compressed. Vague whispers continued to echo, not from far away, but right in the space around me. They are like invisible fingers gently caressing my mind, making it impossible for me to escape. Every step I took I heard those voices, not just vague whispers anymore, but clearer calls. I couldn't distinguish them, but I sensed that they were not harmless sounds. A terrifying presence, something inhuman, is hovering in this space. I can't keep going. A wave of dizziness came over me as I looked into the darkness ahead. It felt like there was something waiting for me, lurking in the dark, waiting for me to step in, waiting for me to touch it. I felt something touch my shoulder, a brush, as if someone was standing right behind me, but when I turned around, there was nothing but darkness. The feeling of being watched is stronger than ever. I felt a presence right behind me, something invisible but very real. I can't take it anymore, I have to get out of here, I have to run. But when I turned around, my steps strangely slowed down. Unable to walk quickly, unable to do anything but stand still in that silence. Suddenly, a noise rang out from behind. It wasn't a step, but a sharp sound, like metal being scraped against a rough floor. I turned around, the flashlight flashed in the air, and I saw it. A blurry figure, standing right behind me, unclear, but very real. My heart stopped beating for a beat, and I couldn't breathe. It felt like something was following me, dragging me into the darkness. I don't dare go back again. I walked quickly towards the stairs, but I couldn't run. My steps seemed to be held back by an invisible force. That shadow, that presence, still stood there, silent, not moving, but I knew it was waiting for me. Waiting for me to make a mistake, waiting for me to face it. I can't go back. I can't face something I can't understand. I ran up the stairs, but my heart was racing as if I was being chased. When I got to the door, I quickly locked it and sat panting on the floor, sweat drenching the back of my shirt. I felt like there was something still clinging to me, still following me, even when I locked the door. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every time I close my eyes, I feel that presence, that darkness. I couldn't turn off the image of the shadowy figure waiting in the dark. It is not a person, not a creature, but something invisible, but clearly felt. I felt being watched, a following that I couldn't refuse. I wondered if the voices were a part of me, a reaction of my mind, or if there really was something in this building, something inhuman, that I couldn't understand. This feeling is like a hypnosis, I can't escape it. But I can't keep living in this fear forever. I have to find a way to deal with it. The next day, I went back to the building, this time not just to get my things, but to find out the truth. I can't live in this obsession anymore. When I got to the basement, I decided to go in there one last time, to see with my own eyes and face what had been scaring me all this time. The basement was still the same, dark and cold. I walked in, feeling a change in the air, like something was moving in this space. The footsteps still sounded, this time I was sure they weren't imaginary sounds. They are real. I can't run, I can't hide anymore. I continued walking towards the dark corner where I knew that presence was waiting for me. The darkness grew thicker and thicker, as if it were swallowing me whole. And when I turned around, I saw it. A blurry figure, unclear but very real, stood right in front of me. This time, I'm not afraid anymore. I'm not panicking. I stood there, facing the darkness, facing that presence. It didn't say anything, but I felt the intensity in that shadow, the threat it carried. I stood there, trying to understand, trying to figure out what was lurking in this darkness. And then, I heard a breathing sound, soft but clear, as if someone was standing right behind me. I'm not going back. I cannot. But I felt that breath, that cold smell, as if someone was right behind me, watching me, waiting for me to face it. Suddenly, the light in my flashlight flashed again, and I saw that darkness, this time more clearly than ever. It is not a shadowy shadow. It is a shape, an invisible creature that can only be felt, cannot be clearly seen, but is very real, very present. I couldn't speak, couldn't move. I just stood there, lost in darkness. That darkness does not let me go. When I turned around, I could no longer see that figure. But I know, it's not going anywhere. It's still there, always waiting for me. And I can't run away forever. I left the old building behind, but that darkness still follows me, as an inseparable part of my life. No matter where I am, it will always be there, in the darkness, in the voices, in the footsteps that I cannot explain. I don't know how I will cope with it, or if I will ever escape it. But I know that no matter where I go, darkness will always follow me. Even though I left the old building, the darkness never left me. I feel its presence wherever I go, in every deserted space, in every dark corner. Especially late at night, when the weak light from the street lamp outside the window shines into the room, I feel that something is looking at me from the darkness. That feeling, like someone was always standing there, watching me, never leaving. Every time I close my eyes, I see vague images of that old building, of that darkness. A part of me knows that it hasn't left me, still clings to me, still exists somewhere in my mind. And although I tried to forget, every night the obsession became stronger, tormenting me endlessly. I began to feel signs of mental exhaustion. Unexplained fatigue, strange dreams, and a deepening feeling that I couldn't escape those shadows. I didn't know if I was being watched or if I was falling into a spiral of paranoia, but every time I walked through the hallway, I felt an invisible pressure, as if something was waiting for me. And then, one rainy night, as I sat alone in an empty room, I heard it again. Voices. This time, they weren't a vague whisper like before, but a clear sound, an unmistakable call. I heard my name, but it wasn't a human voice. It echoed in the air, cold and eerie, as if something not of this world was trying to communicate with me. I can't escape it, the voice said again, but this time it was stronger, it seemed to come from behind me. I turned around, but didn't see anyone. However, I felt that presence, as if there was something standing right behind me, so close that I could feel its cold breath. I can't move. My hand shook as I held the flashlight, but when I shined it, there was nothing but darkness, and no trace of anyone. That call continued, like an irresistible invitation, drawing me into the darkness. That feeling is stronger than ever. It is not an imagination. It's real, and it's here, right next to me. I can't bear it anymore. I know I cannot continue to live in this fear, in the feeling that darkness is still lingering around me. I decided to go back to the old building again, this time not to get stuff, but to face it, to know clearly whether something really existed in there or not. I entered the building again. Everything is as I left it, but something has changed. The space feels more stuffy and colder. My every step echoed in the silence, and as I walked towards the basement, I could feel a change in the air. Something invisible, moving in the darkness, as if waiting for me. The flashlight in my hand was weak, but it couldn't illuminate this dark space. The voices began to sound again, this time clearer and closer than ever. They revolve around me, pressure and tension seemed to spread throughout this space. I could feel something approaching, but I couldn't see anything but the darkness. And then, in that moment of despair, I saw it. A shadowy figure, standing at the end of the hallway. That darkness didn't move, but it was very real, very clear. I couldn't move, couldn't speak. It was a shapeless, faceless shadow, but I felt its presence very clearly, as if it were standing right in front of me, watching me. I wanted to run, but my feet felt glued to the ground. Unable to move, unable to breathe, I just stood there, feeling each passing moment in haunting silence. The darkness was still there, waiting for me to enter, and I knew that I couldn't get out. I entered this place, and now I can't leave. When I turned around, I saw a door open behind me. It wasn't the door of the room I had entered, but another door, one that I hadn't recognized before. And from that door, footsteps began to sound again, steady and strong, as if someone was walking towards me. I cannot react. There was nothing to do but stand still, like a puppet in the hands of an invisible force. The sound of footsteps grew closer and clearer. And then, as it approached me, I felt a blast of cold air on my face. Coldness invaded my body, as if I were frozen, unable to move. That shadow, that invisible thing, was coming closer to me little by little, forcing me to face it. There was only a short distance left, and I felt it, right in the darkness, right in that old building. At this point, I can't run away anymore. The voices in my head were not invitations, but warnings, whispers that declared that I was trapped in this cycle forever. I cannot escape it. I turned around one last time, the light from the flashlight shining into the darkness, but couldn't find anything. There was only darkness, only that presence, waiting for me. And in that moment, I realized an undeniable truth: darkness is not something I can hide from. It is deeply ingrained in me, in my mind, and it will stay with me for the rest of my life. In the following days, I couldn't get that feeling out of my mind. Even though I had moved away from the building, even though I had changed my environment, the darkness still followed me like an inescapable ghost. Every night I woke up in the middle of the night, my heart pounding, sweat soaking the back of my shirt, and the air around me became thick, as if something invisible was waiting for me. The feeling of being watched never goes away. Every time I looked into the dark corners of the room, I felt invisible eyes looking at me, watching my every move. I couldn't sleep, and I felt more and more like I was being pulled down into an endless abyss with no way out. Those voices, not in the dream, but in the waking state, always echoed in my ears, as if those things were deeply ingrained in my mind. One night, as I was sitting in my room, trying to figure out how to continue my work, I suddenly heard a noise. First there was a click, then a whisper, not in the surrounding air, but in my own mind. I turned slightly, but saw nothing but darkness. With all my remaining courage, I walked closer to the door and opened it slowly. I didn't want to see anything, but part of me knew I couldn't hide forever. I can't live with this fear, can't keep running away. A strange feeling enveloped me. The voices, the footsteps, all seemed to slowly blend together, forming an indistinguishable ghostly symphony. At that moment, I felt a cold wind brush against my face, and then a very soft, thump sound, as if something had just passed me in the dark. I can't look back. Don't dare look. And in that moment, I understood that this presence was more than just an entity in physical space. It took over my mind, became ingrained in my fears, became an inseparable part of me. I couldn't understand it, but I knew that I couldn't continue living like this. The voices didn't stop, they were even clearer than before. Now they weren't just whispering but were almost having a dialogue with me. I felt like I was standing in a prison cell, unable to escape those strange words. Every night I hear them, every night I feel them like a blow to my mind. That presence not only frightened me about the things I could see but also about the things I couldn't see. Sometimes, I feel it's right behind me, but when I turn around, there's only darkness and silence. This time, I can't pretend anymore. I cannot continue to face this obsession without doing anything. I went back to the place I ran away from, to the old building, and I knew that this time would be the last time. If I don't face this, it will forever haunt me, forever eat away at my mind. When I entered the old building, the space seemed to be twisted again, and the air became thick, as if the building itself was breathing. I couldn't see anything but darkness before my eyes, but I could feel a change in the air. Darkness, like a living creature, was curling around me. I entered the basement again, but this time nothing was the same. With every step I took, I felt like I was slowly being swallowed whole. Every step, every footstep echoed in the empty space, as if someone was following me, step by step. And then, I heard them. Voices. Not a whisper, but a plea, an urgent call. I heard my name, clearer and stronger than ever. But this time, not just from inside my head, but from the walls, from everywhere around me. These voices did not come from humans, nor did they come from any creature I could perceive. They come from somewhere deep in the darkness, from a world that cannot be seen. A feeling of fear engulfed me, and I couldn't move. Those voices became more and more intense, making my head feel like it was about to explode. They weren't meaningless whispers, but an inexplicable dialogue, as if they were conveying a message I couldn't understand. I can't bear it anymore. Those voices didn't stop, they got closer and closer, clearer and clearer. I can't stay calm anymore. I turned and ran up the stairs in a panic, but as I approached the door, I heard footsteps following me, light but unmistakable footsteps, as if something was following me. Every step I took, I felt a force pulling me back, a strange hypnosis that kept me from getting out of this darkness. I knew that I couldn't leave forever. That shadow, that presence, followed me here. And I also understand that, no matter where I go, the darkness will still be with me, and those voices will never stop. I don't know if I can escape this darkness, if I can escape the voices that constantly call out to me. But one thing I know for sure is that this darkness has become a part of me, ingrained in my mind, inseparable. I may leave that building behind, but that building won't leave me behind. At night, I still feel that presence, still hear those voices, echoing in my head. I don't know if I will have to live like this forever, but I know that these shadows will always follow me, never let me go, forever. The feeling of being watched never goes away. Even though I left the building, the darkness still followed me like an inseparable shadow. Every night, when I close my eyes, I feel those voices, echoing in my mind. Not vague or distant sounds, but clear, close whispers, as if they were standing right behind me. I cannot escape them. Every time I think I have shaken off the obsessions, they return, stronger, more threatening. One night, as I was sitting in my office, a strange feeling came over me. I feel like the space around me is changing. The air was thick and hot, as if someone was standing right next to me, right in this room. I turned around, but didn't see anyone. Everything was the same as before, but the feeling was undeniable. I couldn't breathe normally, every breath felt stuck in my throat. That darkness, that shadow, I feel it more clearly than ever. This time, the presence was more than just a vague feeling. It was so clear and strong that I couldn't continue to ignore it. Those voices were no longer whispers, but had become calls, gasps, as if someone was standing right in the darkness, calling me there. I couldn't do anything, I could only stand there, feeling the cold spread in the air, as if the darkness was slowly swallowing me. Suddenly, the light on the ceiling began to flicker. The light flickered, long shadows fell on the floor, leading to strange shapes. My heart skipped a beat as I looked at those shadows. It can't be an illusion. I know that something is here, in this space, and it doesn't want me to stay. The voice became clearer, as if someone was standing right behind me, whispering in my ear. Every word I heard made me more confused, cold sweat broke out on my forehead. I tried to stop, but my legs couldn't stop moving. They forced me to go towards that calling, as if I had no choice. It felt like an invisible force pulled me towards the dark corner of the room. Every step I took, I felt like my body was paralyzed, unable to control it. The light from the flashlight I held in my hand seemed unable to dispel the darkness, but only made it more dense. That darkness not only filled the space, but also invaded my mind. A strange feeling arose within me. Not only did I feel the darkness around me, but I also felt it in my own body. Every breath becomes heavy, and I can't shake this feeling away. It's eating away at me, making me feel like I'm not myself anymore. That shadow entered me, making me a part of it. The voice rang out again, this time not just a sound, but a strong call, forcing me to listen. I can't run away. That voice was like a judgment, an unchangeable truth. I don't know if I can continue living like this anymore. I can't escape what's haunting me. This time, I no longer dared to open my eyes. I can't look at that shadow anymore. But I feel it. Feeling the cold, the haunting surrounding me. I can't walk, I can't run. Every move became difficult as if there was a force pulling me back, keeping me in this darkness. The voices continued to echo, no longer calls or whispers, but decisive words, as if I no longer had a choice. I can't get out, they said. I will always be here, in the dark. I felt like I was being pulled into a deep black hole. All hope, all freedom, all swallowed by darkness. Finally, I couldn't hold myself anymore. I run. Run from that space, run from those voices, but with every step I took, I felt like I couldn't escape. The darkness is still chasing me, chasing every step, waiting to swallow me. Every time I turned around, I only saw darkness, a shadow I couldn't leave. My mind was spinning, all my thoughts were no longer clear. I don't know where I'm running to, I just want to escape that shadow, escape the voices calling my name. But deep down, I knew I would never get out. A heavy feeling enveloped me, and I could no longer feel anything but that darkness. I don't know if I'm alive or not, because all I feel is an inseparable obsession. I fell down, not knowing where I had gone. A cold feeling covered my body. The voices continued to echo in my head, non-stop. I couldn't move, couldn't think of anything else but those whispers. I can't get out, they said. I will stay forever, in this darkness. And then, I understood that darkness was not something I could run away from. It has become a part of me, taking over my mind. No matter what I do, no matter where I go, it will still be here, inside me. There was no escaping it, I became a part of it, and it became a part of me. When the weak light from the light bulb turned on, I felt the silence in the room gradually being broken, but the uncomfortable feeling still did not disappear. The light only made the darkness in the hallway even thicker, as if the space had been shadowed, not allowing me to clearly see what was hidden. I stood there, for an indescribable moment, my hands shaking as I clutched the light switch. My eyes scanned quickly, looking into every hidden corner of the hallway, but there was nothing but darkness and suffocating cold. Even though I couldn't see anything, I sensed that something was moving in there, not an object but a feeling, an inexplicable presence. I don't dare go in, but I feel that if I don't face it, this obsession will never end. I entered the hallway, and as soon as my feet touched the wooden floor, a slight creak came from under my feet, as if someone was moving there, slowly and quietly. The cold suddenly rushed into my body, making me feel like the air was freezing. This feeling is not like a cold wind, but like something invisible is trying to grab me and not let me walk. The voice, the whisper, echoed in my head again, not in this space, but in my mind. The words were fragmentary, unclear, but I could feel the urgency, as if someone was asking for help, calling me into that darkness. I couldn't understand those words, but a deep cold feeling rose in my heart, as if I were being sucked into a bottomless pit. With every step I took, the space seemed to shrink and tighten around me. The shadow that I couldn't see, but clearly felt, was right behind me, following my every step. The whispers became clearer and clearer, as if they were speaking directly into my ear. I could feel my breath hitching, my body no longer in control. My legs felt like they were frozen, but I still couldn't stop walking, as if an invisible force was pushing me forward. The deeper I went into the hallway, the worse the cold feeling became. It's not the coldness of the air, but the coldness of a presence, an invisible force penetrating every cell of me. The voices began to become stronger, clearer, as if they were trying to convey a message I couldn't understand. I didn't dare turn around, didn't dare look into the darkness behind me. The feeling that something was standing right behind me, but I couldn't see it, made me even more scared. And then, when I reached the end of the hallway, I saw it. Not a physical form, not a figure, but an invisible presence, a coldness emanating from the space in front of me. The light from the dim bulb seemed unable to illuminate what was hidden ahead. I couldn't move, but I couldn't leave. Suddenly, those voices stopped. A silence covered the space, heavy and scary. This cold was inexplicable. It was not like ordinary cold, but more like a presence existing in this space, waiting for me to face it. The feeling of being watched, of being monitored, seemed to suddenly become really strong. That shadow, that invisible presence, is not just a feeling anymore. It is as if it existed in each space, in each wall, in each corner of the house. I cannot escape it. I turned around, trying to leave, but with every step I took, I clearly felt that presence following me, like a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. Every time I turned back to look, that shadow became clearer, not some object, but a desire, something invisible that was invading every cell in my body. I feel like I can't stand it anymore. The cold, the silence, those voices, it all seemed unbearable. I don't know if I'm crazy, but it feels so real. Every step I take, I feel that presence more clearly. Those shadows, those voices, that cold, they had entered me, and I couldn't escape. This building is not an ordinary house. It was something else, something I couldn't understand, but I knew I was taken by it. Despite all my efforts, I cannot escape this obsession. Those voices continued, without stopping. I felt that shadow getting closer and closer. It is not something that can be explained, but an undeniable presence that takes over everything. I can't fight it anymore. And then, in that moment, I suddenly understood a truth that I didn't want to admit. That shadow, that cold, was me. The obsession has been deeply ingrained in my mind, merged with my personality. I can't escape it, because it has become a part of me. The voices, the footsteps, the shadow, it's all me. And when I realized this, I no longer felt afraid. Because I know, this obsession will never leave, and I will live with it for the rest of my life. I couldn't escape the feeling that that hallway, that space, was waiting for me. Every night, when I try to sleep, I feel a presence that is invisible, yet so clear. The voices didn't stop, they whispered and lingered in my space, clinging to me, forcing me to face what I couldn't explain. I cannot run away from them. No matter how hard I tried to resist, the voices didn't stop. They drew me in, slowly, like a tornado, wrapping tightly around my mind. Every time I walked into that hallway, a strange tension spread throughout my body. It was like an invisible pull, forcing me to go in, to face something that I couldn't see but felt clearly. The coldness in the air is not due to the weather, but due to some force controlling this space. It felt as if I was entering a nightmare, but couldn't wake up. This time, I couldn't just stand still. That feeling was stronger than ever, and I decided to step deeper, exploring all that was hidden in the darkness of this hallway. I held the flashlight in my hand, feeling the coldness from it, as if the flashlight itself was cold from the air. With every step I took, I felt the tension building, as if this space was not just a part of the house, but a living entity, watching me, waiting for me to make a mistake. As I advanced further into the hallway, I noticed that everything around me seemed to change. The air became increasingly heavier, as if something was compressing the space, making it difficult for me to breathe. I couldn't escape the feeling that the shadow was hovering around me, waiting for the moment to strike. The voice echoed in my head again. But this time it wasn't a meaningless whisper. They were clearer and stronger, as if they were calling to me, forcing me to listen. I cannot escape them. And then, I heard footsteps. Not from the back, but from the front. The footsteps were slow and steady, as if someone was walking towards me. I didn't dare turn back, but that feeling, that presence, became more and more clear. With every step I take, I feel it getting closer. I can't do anything, I can't go back. I could only keep moving forward, as if being pulled into a place I couldn't escape. Suddenly, the flashlight in my hand began to flicker, the dim light only illuminating part of the hallway, making the darkness even thicker. I couldn't see anything clearly, but I could feel the presence. It is near me, following me, waiting for me to turn around to face it. Suddenly, the light bulb went out, and I was left with a dark, silent space. At this point, I no longer feel like I'm in a house anymore. I felt like I was being sucked into an endless black hole, unable to escape, unable to stop. The voices began to sound stronger, as if they were spreading fear into my mind. I tried to breathe, but the air seemed so thick, so heavy, that I couldn't breathe. Then I heard a noise from behind. A scratching sound, as if someone was trying to scratch the wall, slowly grew longer and clearer. I didn't dare turn around, didn't dare face something I couldn't see. The cold, that presence, seemed to be spreading throughout my body, taking over every cell. The tension in my body reached its peak, but I couldn't stop. I feel like I'm sinking into darkness, unable to escape, unable to face it. I couldn't run away, even if my body wanted to. The voices didn't stop, they were forcing me to listen. I no longer know what I am doing, I no longer know what is real and what is an illusion. And then, I felt a change. Not from the surrounding space, but from my own body. I felt like I was being transformed, pulled into this darkness, becoming a part of it. This feeling is not fear, but a hypnosis, an irresistible attraction. I'm not me anymore. Suddenly, I couldn't move. I stood still in the dark space, there was no sound, no shadow, but I knew that I was no longer alone. I felt that presence, it was right next to me. Without looking, I knew it was standing there, looking at me, waiting for me to face it. In that moment of despair, I felt an invisible force pulling me forward. My legs were stiff, but I couldn't stand still. I walked forward, as if I had to, as if I couldn't help but go. And then, when I entered the darkness, I couldn't see anything anymore. I couldn't feel anything but that cold, the cold that penetrated into my bones. And then, the voice rang out for the last time. A strong, clear, but extremely cold voice. I can't escape here. I'll stay forever. That's when I realized, darkness is not something I can fight. It is not just a presence, but a part of me, a part of my mind. I can't avoid it, I can't face it. It was a part of me, and I became a part of it. I entered the bedroom with final determination, determined not to let that mirror control my mind any longer. The door closed behind me with a small, click, sound, echoing into the silence of the room. The dim light from the lamp on the bedside table cast dim streaks of light on the walls, but it couldn't dispel the cold that seeped deep into my bones. The cold, that feeling did not come from the outside, but from deep within my heart. It is always present, silently watching, whether I want to look directly at it or not. That old mirror, standing quietly in the corner of the room, has become an indispensable part of my life. But now, every time I glanced towards it, I felt like there was something waiting for me to look at it, not just a reflection of myself, but another presence, a shadowy figure that did not belong to this world. I can't escape that feeling, no matter how hard I try. One night, after a long day at work and unable to stop thinking about my old house, I decided to face it. This is the last time, I said to myself. I can't continue to live in this fear. The light in the bedroom turned off, leaving only darkness. I stood in front of the mirror, not daring to turn around and look at my own reflection. But unable to control myself, my eyes were drawn to the mirror, and I saw it. That shadow was not me, but another shape, an inexplicable reflection. The shadow didn't move, but it stood still there, looking at me. I felt the cold running down my spine, my heart was beating so hard that I couldn't breathe. At this moment, I knew that I could not continue to live in this fear. But I couldn't walk out of the room, I couldn't turn away. My eyes couldn't leave the mirror, I couldn't stop looking at the shadow standing there. Suddenly, that shadow moved. It was no longer a simple reflection, but a separate presence, as if a part of it had separated and become an independent entity. I can't breathe. The shadow in the mirror is not my reflection anymore. It was something else, no face, just solid, indistinguishable darkness. I wanted to scream, wanted to run away from it, but my body felt frozen. Unable to move, unable to react, I could only stand there, staring at that unclear shadow. Then, for a breathless moment, I felt a change in the air. The cold feeling seemed to increase, as if that darkness was not only reflected in the mirror but was also spilling out, filling the space around me. I turned around, but the room space was still the same, only me and the shadow in the mirror, facing me. At this point, I couldn't bear it anymore. I rushed out of the bedroom and hurried through the hallway, but the feeling that something was still following me, still looking at me from behind, was undeniable. I felt its coldness, even though I couldn't see anything. The space in the house seemed to become stuffy, the walls seemed to close in, trapping me inside. A few days later, I decided to sell this house. I can't live with these voices, these shadows any longer. I can't continue to lie to myself that everything is just delusion. The house has changed me, and I don't know if I can ever get myself back again. I was packing my things to move out, and as I walked through the hallway for the last time, a strange feeling came over me again. It wasn't the cold anymore, but a feeling as if the house was holding me back, not wanting me to leave. The shadow in the mirror had become a part of me, and when I turned around, I found I couldn't escape it. That mirror is not a simple item. It was a door that opened to another world that I couldn't explain, a place full of mysteries that I couldn't face. No matter what I do, no matter where I run, that shadow will always follow me, will always be a part of me. Since then, I have never been able to completely escape those voices, those shadows. Every time I look in the mirror, I see that shadowy figure, like a part of me, inseparable. I don't know if I can live in this obsession forever, but I know one thing for sure, that shadow will always follow me, never let me go. Even though I tried to leave the house, the darkness and those voices never left me. I couldn't shake this obsession, feeling as if I was stuck in a loop I couldn't escape from. That house has taken over my mind, has become deeply ingrained in my every thought, every move, as if I cannot live without it. Every time I close my eyes, I see the darkness, the voices, that scary silence rushing back, making it impossible for me to rest. Every morning when I wake up, I feel like I'm living in a bad dream, not in a normal house but in a place haunted by invisible, inexplicable things. The cold is still present, even if I turn on the heat or open the window to let in fresh air. That cold did not come from the surrounding environment, but from inside me, from within my mind. Every night, I feel that presence. When night fell, the house fell into absolute silence, but in that silence, I heard footsteps. Not the steps in reality, but in my head, in my thoughts. The footsteps became clearer and clearer, as if someone was walking in the hallway, approaching me. But when I turned around, there was nothing but darkness. How many times have I stood there, in the middle of a dark room, hearing invisible footsteps, feeling an invisible presence watching me? I can't bear it anymore. Every little noise, every step, every sound in the house made me panic. I can't escape the feeling of being watched and monitored. Those voices kept ringing in my head, not easy to understand words, but distorted, interrupted, and impossible to grasp sounds. One night, I decided to face this obsession. I can't continue living in this fear anymore. No matter what I do, no matter where I go, the darkness will follow me. I can't hide forever. I decided not to leave this house until I discovered the truth. Somehow, I had to figure out what was scaring me so much. The door of that hallway called me again, as if it was inviting me to enter. This space is not an ordinary hallway. It was a living nightmare, a place I couldn't explain, couldn't escape. I walked closer, each step heavy, as if I couldn't walk lightly. The cold enveloped me, as if I were entering another dimension, not part of this house. Each step makes the obsession more obvious. The voices kept echoing in my head, becoming clearer and clearer, as if they were whispering in my ear. They were not human voices, but distorted, incomprehensible words. I can't see them, but I feel them, they are there, right next to me. When I reached the end of the hallway, I could no longer turn back. That shadow, that invisible presence, was waiting for me. It didn't move, it didn't have a face, but I felt its presence more clearly than ever. The voices became stronger, as if they were conveying a message I couldn't understand. I can't breathe. I feel like I'm stuck in a vortex, unable to escape. It felt like something was trying to pull me into the darkness, as if it wanted me to be a part of it. I couldn't get out, couldn't do anything but stand there, waiting. The voices kept ringing in my head, forcing me to listen and receive them. I can't continue, but I can't stop either. A wave attacked me from behind. I couldn't see anything, couldn't feel anything but the cold, but I knew that something was pushing me forward, like a fierce wind, like an invisible force pulling me into the darkness. I can't resist, I can't run away. I felt that invisible hand pressing me into the corner of the black shadow, forcing me to face it. Every word I heard from those voices sounded like an accusation. I can't get out of here, they said. I will stay forever. At this point, I can no longer distinguish between what is real and what is virtual. Those voices, those shadows, they have become a part of me. Cannot be separated, cannot be removed. Oh well, everyone is silent. No more voices, no more darkness. I don't know if I'm alive or not, but I feel a change in the space around me. No more cold, no more obsession. But deep down, I know that that shadow is always here, always following me, and I cannot escape it. I don't know if I've truly gotten rid of it or not, but I can't stop feeling that this obsession will always follow me. And perhaps, a part of me has accepted that I will forever live in its shadow, unable to stop. The wind blew through the window, bringing with it the heat from the summer outside, but in this house, the air was strangely cold. Every step I take is as if I am passing through another space, a space trapped between reality and unreality, between sanity and a stupor that cannot be escaped. That feeling, that strange feeling that I can't describe in words, just stuck with me. No matter how hard I tried to chase it away, that cold, gloomy silence still remained. As I entered the attic, the weak light from the single lamp on the ceiling shined down on dense shadows on the old wooden floor. That space, as if forgotten, like a part of the world forgotten, buried. I spent many hours there, trying to get things together, but couldn't get rid of that strange feeling. Simple actions like moving an old armchair can seem impossible. When I tried to lift it, I felt a change in the air, as if someone had just stood up from the chair. The chair cushion sank, then rebounded, as if someone had just left. My legs were weak, my heart was pounding as I stood there, looking at the chair, feeling the chilling cold that seemed to be spreading from that chair itself. Even though I told myself that I was just being paranoid, that strange, inexplicable feeling kept following me, making it impossible for me to breathe. Small noises, strange sounds from the dark corners of the attic, as if something was moving with me, following me. An inseparable feeling of obsession. I turned around, not daring to look back at the chair, not daring to face what I had felt. The feeling of fear overwhelmed everything. I walked out of the attic, deciding that I couldn't stay here any longer. But when I turned around to close the door, I heard noises again from the corner of the room. How is that possible? No one is here. I saw the chair, I made sure I inspected it thoroughly. But now, it makes strange sounds. Creaking sounds, sounds like someone was breathing, like something invisible was sitting on that chair. My heart felt like it was stuck in my chest, I couldn't continue. It felt like someone was staring at me, waiting for me to make a mistake. I cannot escape that presence. I couldn't leave without resolving the questions in my mind. I needed to face the shadow, those voices, even though I knew I might never escape. I returned to the bedroom, determined to face the mirror. Those voices were no longer meaningless whispers. They became clearer, stronger, as if they had become a part of me. I can't continue living with this fear, but I also don't know if I have the strength to face what I've been trying to run away from for so long. When I opened the bedroom door, I felt a change in the air. It wasn't silence, but a suffocating feeling, as if this space was trapping me inside, not letting me escape. I walked in, not daring to look in the mirror right away, but I knew that I couldn't avoid it anymore. That mirror didn't just reflect me, but something else, a presence that I couldn't explain. Dim light shined in from outside the window, and I saw my reflection in the mirror, but it wasn't me anymore. The eyes in the mirror are not my eyes. They looked at me, staring, with a strange self-awareness. I couldn't take my eyes off them, as if I was hypnotized. I tried to step closer, but every step, every breath became heavier, as if I was entering a bottomless pit. And then, in that moment, I felt a great change. The mirror is no longer a mere reflection. It has become a window into another world. The images were not me, but a twisted darkness, distorted faces, unclear figures swirling around in them. I can't bear it anymore. My vision blurred, my body became numb. The voices kept ringing in my head, forcing me to face them. That mirror is not just an object. It is an entrance. An entrance I cannot escape from. The voices, the images, they have become a part of me. There is no way back, no hope. I was completely swallowed by this darkness. I don't know how much longer I can live in this obsession. The voices, the shadows, the mirrors, it all became a part of me. I can't get out. And when I looked in the mirror for the last time, I saw it was not me, but another figure, something inexplicable, looking back at me. Am I still myself, or have I become part of that shadow? Fear still haunts me. Even though I left, the light of day couldn't dispel the gloom I carried in my mind. Every time I stop at an intersection, or every time I look in the rearview mirror, I feel like something is watching me. That feeling cannot be explained, but it is very clear. Even when the house was behind me, I still couldn't escape that presence. It still lingered in my every thought, every step I took. The nightmare of the couch, the rubbing noises, and the strange sounds, it's all still there. Deep down, I knew I couldn't simply ignore it. That obsession is not something that can be easily thrown away, it is deeply ingrained in me, as a part of myself. I know that no matter where I go, I cannot escape it. As I drove, the light from the streetlights began to dim under the drizzle, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was still being watched. Every time I looked in the rearview mirror, that black shadow appeared, not in the mirror, but in my mind. It's like something invisible is pulling me back, holding me back to the old house. Every time I tried to forget, every time I thought I was free, that feeling came back, stronger than ever. The voice still echoed in my head, even though I couldn't hear it clearly, but they still pierced my thoughts like invisible knives, pulling me back to the unsolved mysteries. The obsession has not left me. Even when I thought I had escaped, blurry images of the chair, of the attic, continued to appear in my mind. I may have convinced myself that the house, and the strange events I witnessed, were simply the result of stress, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was seriously wrong. I began to feel this obsession like a ghost always following me. It was no longer a memory of home, but a presence, an invisible force that I couldn't escape. And when I looked in the mirror, I no longer saw myself. I saw another person, a figure that had been taken over, controlled by that shadow. Every night, I had to face the image in the mirror. Those voices echoed in my head again, unable to turn off, unavoidable. I don't know if I'm really going crazy or not, but a part of me feels that I've lost my original self. That shadow, the voices, it all seemed to have become a part of me, as if I couldn't live without it. Suddenly, in a quiet moment, I realized that this obsession was not of my own making, but of the house that had been given to me. It changed me, it entered my mind, and now I cannot separate from it. I can't escape that shadow, I can't escape those voices. One evening, I couldn't stand it anymore. I turned around, deciding to face it one last time. I stood in front of the mirror, feeling the chilling cold covering me, but this time I couldn't look into it like a normal person. The mirror not only reflected my image, but was a window to another world, a world I couldn't understand, but couldn't escape. The voices rang out again, stronger and clearer than ever. They are forcing me to look in the mirror, forcing me to face the shadow that has followed me all my life. I can't stop, I can't turn away. I stood there, unable to breathe, unable to move, with only the shadow in the mirror looking back at me. And then, in the final moment, I realized that I couldn't get out anymore. The shadow in the mirror was not a part of me, but a part of that house, a part of all that happened in it. And I, now, have become a part of it, inseparable, inescapable. This feeling will never end, and I don't know if I can live without it anymore. Any trace that the kettle was ever in operation. I stood there, my hands still wet and cold, staring at that harmless object on the kitchen table. The whistling sound still echoed in my head, unable to get rid of it, as if it was chuckling at my helplessness. It felt like there was something inexplicable, something forgotten, a memory imprisoned in this very house, that kept coming back to haunt me. I looked around the kitchen again, everything was still the same, nothing had changed, but that quietness, that strange emptiness, seemed to make everything even more strange. I felt like I was living in a vortex that I couldn't leave, a vortex that the house had created to trap me in confusion, fear, and self-doubt. Then I tried to reason this out, but couldn't. I don't know if I'm living in a haunted house or if it's just stress and fatigue that makes me imagine things. I cannot know for sure. Every time I think I've escaped, when I feel like I've isolated that feeling of fear, it comes back. It is like a part of the house, like the air, like a presence that always exists in every dark corner. I can't explain why, but when I go back and look at things that were once normal, I feel like I'm not myself anymore. That night, I stayed awake. Every time I almost fall asleep, I hear the kettle whistle. Not from my kitchen anymore, but from across the hall. It rang every now and then, reminding me that I couldn't escape. A presence I couldn't cope with, a whistle that became a silent reminder that I was still under surveillance, that I wasn't out of this cycle yet. The next morning, I decided I had to do something to get out of this house. But as I approached the door, I felt an invisible force pushing me back. It was as if this house was holding me back, as if an invisible hand was tightening around me, not letting me go. The space became thick, my breathing became difficult, and I could do nothing but stand there, looking at the door. Part of me wants to throw it all away, want to turn around and never look back, but another part calls me to keep going, to find the answer, even though I know that answer may never come. And then, a cold wind blew through the window, and I felt a change in the air. Something is changing, something is approaching, and I don't know if I'm ready to face it. With a new determination, I returned to the room. I can no longer hide, cannot live in this fear any longer. I walked in, feeling the coldness of the thick air surrounding me, and when I looked in the mirror, I saw myself again. But it's not me like before. My eyes are not my eyes. They were empty, lifeless, as if another presence was occupying me. Once again, I felt my heart pounding, but this time, not because of fear, but because of a painful truth that I couldn't deny. I'm not me anymore. And this house is more than just a place. It was something else, something I couldn't explain, couldn't understand. And when I turned away, I felt that the house was still there, still following me, watching over me, as a part of me. It's not just where I live. It has become a part of me, a part one cannot escape. No matter where I go or what I do, the shadow of the house will always follow me, in every step, in every thought, in every breath. Part of me admits that I will never truly escape this house. And maybe, its shadow will follow me for the rest of my life. Every night I wake up in fear, not because of nightmares but because I feel that the house has taken over all my thoughts and feelings. I couldn't go anywhere without feeling that cold, that dark presence that hung in the air. Like a ghost, the house is always there, quietly watching my every step, waiting for me to be unable to escape. Even though I try to create a new space, a change, that strange feeling still follows me. The house is not just a place I once lived, but now it has become a part of me, a part of an obsession that I cannot explain. Every dark corner, every little noise made me tremble in fear, even if I opened the window wide or turned on all the lights in the apartment. The darkness is still waiting, waiting to swallow everything. Honestly, I don't know if I'm crazy. Is all of this just because I'm too stressed? Or was there really something in that house, something invisible, that I couldn't face? The feeling was indescribable, like an invisible restraint, as if I was in another dimension. Every time I turned my head, the black shadow in the mirror stared back at me, as if it was smiling sinisterly, waiting for me to be unable to escape. The voices continued to echo in my head. Lost whispers, words that couldn't be heard clearly, but they were like knives, gnawing at my mind. I can't explain why I feel like they really exist, really there, right next to me. No matter where I go or what I do, that feeling cannot escape me. There were nights when I woke up, my whole body drenched in cold sweat, my mouth dry and bitter. I couldn't sleep anymore, couldn't stop thinking about that house, about the strange voices, about the black shadow that always followed me. This haunting feeling is not a nightmare anymore. It is the truth, a truth that I cannot explain. I tried many ways to get out. I moved, I changed everything, trying to find another place where I could live peacefully. But no, the shadow of the house, the shadow of those voices still follow me. There were times when I thought I had escaped, but then I heard rustling, breathing, faint voices in my ears, as if they were always chasing me, as if I was being hunted by those invisible things. Once again, I decided to return to the house, not to live, but to face my fears. I want to know why I'm so obsessed. Why is there no way for me to get out of this circle? I know I may not live in that house anymore, but why doesn't its shadow leave? Why can't I get rid of the feeling that I'm still stuck inside? I returned to the attic where I had first felt that invisible cold. The dim light from the weak light bulb still shines, the atmosphere is still as stuffy as before. But this time, I don't feel scared. Instead, I felt a great confusion, a feeling that everything was too late. I walked into that old room and stood in front of the chair where I had seen the shadow. Nothing changed, nothing but eerie silence. But I know, this silence is not peace. It is a waiting, a prolongation of fear. It was at that moment that I realized that I could never escape the house, could never escape its shadow. Everything, from the voices to the cold, to the eerie silence in the attic, is a part of me. The house is not just a place where I live, but a part of an obsession that is deeply ingrained in my mind. No matter where I go or what I do, those voices, that shadow, will always follow me. Because they are not something I can release. They are a part of me, and I am a part of them. And when I realized that, I understood that I would never escape that house. It has taken over my mind, and now, I cannot live without it. Since that day, I couldn't get rid of that strange tension. Every time I returned home, I felt the cold from the kettle, and it seemed like I was trapped in an inexplicable vortex. My eyes began to blur. No matter what I looked at, I felt its presence. Something invisible is taking hold in this apartment, and there's nothing I can do to get rid of it. That evening, when I returned from the company, I felt an indescribable anxiety. My heart pounded as I entered the door, and I felt a change in the air, a dry air, as if nothing had survived in it. The strange feeling from the kettle, the feeling like someone had touched it, still stuck with me. I couldn't breathe, as if this space was suffocating me, enveloping me in a layer of darkness that I couldn't escape from. Everything started to get blurry. The whole apartment became a maze, not about the walls, but about the repetition of inexplicable memories and feelings. I felt like I had fallen into an unconscious state, where everything was distorted, deformed by my own obsessions. Every day that passes, I check the kettle, no matter how hard I try to avoid it. It was always there, in sight, like an inexplicable sign. Sometimes, I think I'm simply imagining things, but the moment I turn away, I feel the coldness of the handle, and then the shivering feeling when I discover it has moved, changing position on its own. I started to get into the habit of asking myself, who did this? Everything in the apartment seemed to remain the same, but the kettle seemed to have a mind of its own, a presence that I couldn't control. Late one evening, when the hallway lights flickered, I no longer had the courage to believe that what was happening could be explained by reason. That uncomfortable feeling still persists. I put the kettle down on the kitchen table as usual, and just then, I heard a whistle, soft but clear, as if there was something in the air, a gentle call. My heart started beating faster, and I ran to the kitchen again, trying to stay calm. But when I saw the kettle again, I knew I was no longer in control. It's not an ordinary item anymore. It is part of this haunting, part of this house, and it is still present in me. Every time I faced the kettle, I felt the cold grow stronger, and the voices rang out again, not clear but enough to make me tremble. I couldn't understand them, but I knew they weren't what I imagined. One time, when I was standing near the stove, my hands shaking as I prepared to cook, I noticed the kettle. This time, I couldn't ignore the feeling that something had changed. The dim light inside the kitchen made its shadows seem more gloomy than ever. The sounds, the strange noises that I once thought were my imagination, now became clearer and sharper. And then, the first time I touched it, a numb feeling spread throughout my body. It was cold, so cold that it was inexplicable. It felt like an invisible hand was clinging to my arm, unable to be removed. I started running out of the kitchen, my heart pounding in my chest. But when I turned around, the kettle was still there, alone on the table, as if it was waiting for me. I couldn't escape this strange feeling, the feeling that I had been forced to confront something I couldn't understand. Day by day, I no longer have the strength to distinguish between reality and fantasy. This house, with its strange voices and objects like a kettle, has turned into an inescapable haunting. Every time I close my eyes, I see darkness, I see inexplicable voices. And when I opened my eyes, it was still there, unable to escape. I wonder if I'm really still myself. Will I become part of that shadow, part of this house? When I looked in the mirror, I saw no one but myself, but that feeling that I couldn't leave, that I would forever be haunted, it still stuck with me. The shadow of this house will never leave me. No matter where I run or what I do, I know that I will always be stuck there. More and more, I feel myself being swallowed by this house. Every step in the apartment is like a challenge, a battle with myself. The feeling of being watched never left me. No matter if I change my habits or try to focus on work, that shadow, that invisible presence is always there, hovering around me. Strange voices kept echoing in my head. Even though I couldn't hear them clearly, they were still clear enough to make me unable to concentrate on anything. I started to feel like I wasn't myself anymore, like I had become a part of this house. The whispers of the past, the eerie sounds in the night, all were pulling me into a world I couldn't escape. I began to realize that this space was more than just walls and furniture. It is a living physicality, an invisible existence, where sounds and voices are invading my mind, gradually eroding every conscious thought. The house is not a house anymore. It is an inescapable nightmare. One evening, as soon as I entered the house, I felt a wave of anxiety. Everything seemed quiet, too still. No kettle whistle, no vague sounds. But instead there was an invisible feeling of tension, as if everything was getting ready to crumble. The room didn't change, but there was something in the air that made me feel suffocated. This space feels like it's suffocating me, shrinking and tighter than ever. I walked through the hallway, each step echoing in that quiet space. My eyes still couldn't leave the mirror in the living room, where I had seen vague silhouettes. I felt like there was someone standing behind me, an invisible presence. If I just turned around I would see it. And then, again, I heard the whistle. Not from the kettle, but from the hidden corner of the room. I stood there, unable to move, unable to breathe. The whistling continued, becoming clearer and clearer, as if someone was waiting for me, watching me, waiting for me to turn around and face something I couldn't understand. The tension in my chest began to rise, as if that shadow had found its way into my mind. Every step I take, every breath I take, feels like I'm falling deeper into a trap that I can't escape from. This house is no longer a home to me. It was something alive, something that took hold of me, that invaded my mind. Every night, when I try to close my eyes, when I try to fall asleep, those voices come back. They were not the voices of the living, but the whispers of the souls trapped in this house. They told me I couldn't leave, that I belonged here. I don't know who they are, nor do I understand why they haunt me, but they don't let me go. No matter where I run, no matter where else I go, I know I will always carry them with me. The inexplicable voices, the strange, inexplicable sounds, are all part of me, of this house. And I can't escape it. One evening, I decided to face it all. I stood in front of the mirror again, looking into my own eyes. I can't see myself anymore. Instead, I saw another figure, someone who was not me, someone haunted, possessed by the shadow of this house. This time, I am no longer afraid. I stood there, facing the reflection in the mirror, and I understood that I would never escape it. That shadow, those voices, all have become a part of me. And I, now, have become a part of them. My story has no end. I didn't get out of the house, I didn't get out of that shadow. The voices, the cold, the obsession, all still cling to me, unable to be removed. I don't know if I'm really still alive, or if I've become part of this shadow, part of this house that I can't escape. Part of me still believes there could be a way out, but I no longer have the strength to look for it. That shadow, those voices, had completely taken over me. And there's nothing I can do but live with them, until it's all gone, or maybe I'll be a part of it forever. My palms were still sweaty, my heart was pounding like it was about to burst in my chest. Everything in this apartment, from the cold kettle to the gloomy darkness around me, seemed to cling to my mind, making it impossible for me to escape. I stood there, leaning against the closet door, feeling like my body was trapped in an invisible cage. All the sounds around me were just strange, inaudible whispers, but they were clearer than ever. This whole space, from the dim light bulbs to the small cracks on the wall, seemed to be hissing in heavy silence. I couldn't shake the feeling that something, or someone, was standing in the dark, watching me, watching me in every breath, every smallest movement of my body. Every night, as I lay in bed, the dead silence of the room surrounded me. Even though the kettle was locked in the box, its presence still followed me. Every time I close my eyes, I still feel it, still hear strange noises echoing from the darkness, inexplicable sounds, as if something was playing with me. The nightmare never ends. Every time I wake up, there's still that eerie feeling, the feeling that I'm not alone, that shadow still exists somewhere, waiting. But this time, it's not the kettle. It was a shadow, an unclear shape, but clear enough that I couldn't tear myself away from it. That shadow began to appear more and more in my life, in unexpected places. I tried to run away from this house, but it seemed impossible. Every time I enter another space, I feel something watching me. Every hidden corner in the apartment, every long shadow on the wall, all reminded me of a presence that I couldn't understand. Voices kept echoing in my head, not human sounds, but inexplicable whispers, as if someone was trying to tell me something, but couldn't hear it clearly. One night, after waking up in a panic, I decided I couldn't live in this obsession anymore. I tried to leave, but as soon as I stepped out of the apartment, I felt something cold run down my spine. Suddenly, I couldn't move, like someone was holding me back. That shadow appeared again, and this time, it was not just in my mind, but seemed to be standing right in front of me, right in this room. My heart was pounding, cold sweat ran down my back. I tried to breathe, but the air felt stuck in my throat. I went back to the apartment, felt its presence, and I knew I wouldn't be able to escape it. It felt like there was an invisible force pulling me into an inescapable spiral. That shadow has become a part of me, in my memories, in every breath. No matter where I go, I will never escape this obsession. The house, the shadow, and those strange voices have all become an inseparable part of my life. I cannot face them, I cannot explain them, I can only live with them forever. I tried to convince myself that those phenomena were just a coincidence, but I couldn't deny the strange feeling that was getting stronger and stronger. Small changes, strange noises, unreasonable details that I couldn't explain, as if this house wasn't just a place to live, but a nightmare slowly and quietly invading my mind. Especially when I sat alone at night, gentle but threatening sounds would come from behind me. Sometimes it's the screeching noise of the windows, other times the soft tap of something on the wooden floor, and every time, I can't find their source. Even on nights when I try to ignore it, just a gentle whistle from somewhere in the dark is enough to make my heart pound again. I know where it came from, the kettle in the kitchen, which I tried to lock in a box, kept reminding me that, no matter what I did, I couldn't escape it. It's hard to find good reasons for everything. The doors were securely locked, all the locks had been replaced, but nothing could stop the feeling of fear. It still resides within me, not in one place, but everywhere in the apartment, gradually seeping into every wall. Every step I took I heard strange noises, and I knew for sure that it was not my imagination, but something real hiding in the darkness. My obsession doesn't stop at sound. The feeling was inescapable, as if every time I went into the room I noticed something had changed. Sometimes I see objects moving strangely, such as the old armchair in the living room. Sometimes it moves out of place, not because someone has sat in it, but because something invisible has impacted it. There were stains, small inexplicable marks on the floor, as if someone was walking around the room at night. Day by day, the feeling that I was no longer alone in this house became clearer. It was a feeling I couldn't name, but it felt like the presence of something, a soul, something invisible but undeniable. Every night, I gradually feel like I'm not just living in a house, but like I'm trapped in it, in a spiral that I can't escape from. And then, one night, when I finally couldn't take it anymore, I decided to go out. I walked out of the apartment, determined to leave this place, but when I looked back, I saw the balcony door open, even though I was sure to close it tightly. The whistles began to sound again from somewhere in the air, soft but clear. This time, I no longer felt like I was facing a house but a living entity, something watching me, following my every move. My heart pounded in my chest, and at that moment, I understood that I couldn't run away. This house, its shadow, and the strange voices have become an inseparable part of me. And no matter if I leave, no matter how many times I change, the shadow of this house will still follow me, always clinging, never leaving. Can't escape, can't explain, can only live with this obsession. As if it had stopped breathing. The lights on my balcony flickered as a sign of weakness, and the air became thicker than ever. I was sitting on the couch, eyes glued to the TV screen but unable to concentrate. The small sounds from the television seemed to be obscured by soft, intense and incessant whispers. I tried to ignore them, but they kept echoing in my head, like an invisible voice trying to invade my mind. That night, I heard a strange sound from the balcony. A small whisper, as if there was someone standing right behind me, right in the empty room. My chest tightened. I turned around, my eyes scanning the room, but there was nothing there but heavy silence. The shadows seemed to move, but I couldn't be sure if it was an illusion or not. I stood up, my legs shaking, and walked out onto the balcony. The dark night and cold air made me shiver, but I couldn't stop looking down at the deserted street under the dim light. Nobody. The feeling that something was watching me was stronger than ever. The whispers returned, clearer, almost inviting. I turned around, my heart pounding, feeling like this very space was tightening around me. Once again, I felt invisible hands pressing on my chest. I left the balcony, locked the door and tried to continue with my day. But every evening, as darkness falls, I feel it coming closer. This apartment, which seemed like a place where I could find peace, became a place filled with fear. I can't explain why, but everything about this house makes me feel like I'm living in a nightmare from which I'll never wake up. My obsession is getting worse and worse. Strange sounds, blurred reflections, and inexplicable figures kept following me. Every night, I always feel like I'm not alone, even though in reality there is no one. The voices, the shadows, it all seemed to be slowly engulfing me in them. And I can't get out. I can't sleep. Can't eat. With each passing day, I felt myself gradually losing control. The world around me started to feel blurry, as if I was trapped in a vortex where each step guided me back to where I started. This inescapable obsession is not simply an ordinary fear. It was deeply ingrained in my mind, like an incurable disease. That night, when the whistle blew again in the quiet space, I decided I would not let fear win. I walked out of the apartment and wandered the empty streets, determined to find an explanation for all of this. But I can't find an explanation. What I found was darkness and emptiness. That invisible presence is clearer than ever. An invisible force was pulling me forward, as if I was hypnotized, unable to escape the urge to move towards it. At this moment, the air around me became thick, heavy, and that cold air seemed to want to grab me, suffocating me. A thin layer of fog covered me, making everything blurry and fading in my vision, as if I was entering another space, a space that did not belong to my reality. I stood still, my hands clutching the metal railing, my body so tense that I could barely move. But the whispers still echoed in my head, this time they were clearer than ever, as if someone was speaking into my ear, forcing me to listen, forcing me to step out, outside the safe confines of this apartment. That whisper became like a kind of crashing wave, forever pushing me into loss, into darkness from which I could never return. Suddenly, I looked down below the balcony, where the streets under the dim streetlights looked up at me. I felt as if I could no longer control my body, as if something invisible, something powerless but powerful was invading my mind, pulling me out there. The cold feeling and the dim vision of that dark night became an enchanting invitation. I felt like I was caught in a bottomless pit where there was no way out. I can't breathe. My hands began to feel numb, feeling like they were no longer mine. My heart was beating so hard, it felt like it was about to burst my chest. I can't leave. A voice rang in my head, but I couldn't clearly distinguish what it was. I only knew that it was inviting me to go out, pushing me into an inexplicable obsession. I was startled and took a step back. My back leaned against the balcony door, and I tried to breathe calmly, but at that moment, the cold penetrated through every layer of my shirt, like an invisible hand was suffocating me. Everything before my eyes became blurred, that image appeared again in my mind. Dark night, whispers in the wind, darkness draws me into it. But in that moment, something flashed in my head, like a sudden presence in space, like I wasn't the only one here. The shadowy figure I caught out of the corner of my eye was a clear sign that there was something in this room that I couldn't see, but I felt it more clearly than ever. A cold feeling enveloped me, like everything in this house was turning around, watching me, controlling me. I cannot escape this obsession. There is no way out. This house is not just where I live. It has become a part of me, pulling me into an inescapable spiral. Every time I think I can escape it, the darkness comes, the whispers echo, and I'm pulled back again, unable to stop, unable to escape. That feeling, the overwhelming fear, the gloom etched in my mind, became an inseparable part of me. And I don't know if I can survive it, but I know for sure that I will never escape from those whispers, from this house, from the shadow that it has become. As I tried to breathe normally, the dim light from the bedside lamp shone on the wall, but could not dispel the thick darkness waiting in the corner of the room. The feeling of something lurking behind me, an invisible presence, made me unable to stop feeling cold. That feeling, like an invisible hand holding me tightly, never letting go. Every time I fell asleep, the whispers echoed in my head, the words were unclear, but they became clearer and clearer, making me lose more control. Unable to bear it any longer, I turned away from the fear that had gripped me so tightly. I started to arrange everything, decided to leave again, determined to escape this house. But what I don't know is, this house is not easy to escape from. Every step I take, every door I close, they find a way to cling to me. Hisses from the curtain, soft sounds, as if the house was laughing at me, knowing I wouldn't be able to escape. I looked back at the house one last time. Darkness loomed in the dark corners, my eyes could only catch my own silhouette reflected in the glass, but I felt another presence beside me. An invisible force was waiting for me, as if I had awakened something that should never be touched. The whispers were now clear voices, as if I was being watched, unable to escape what had begun. With unshakable determination, I walked out of the house, but I didn't know if I could escape this darkness forever. It has clung to me, infiltrated my mind, like a stain that cannot be washed away. As I closed the door behind me, a strange feeling came over me, as if the shadow of the house had followed me out, ready to welcome me into another world where there was no escape. The truth is that all those sounds are inexplicable. A heavy feeling rose in my chest, as if this house was trapping me in a dark cocoon with no way out. Every little sound, every vague movement, all became signals that I couldn't ignore. Even as I tried to calm myself, they continued to follow me like an invisible ghost, driving me into inseparable fear. One night, as I was standing in the dark warehouse, I heard almost imperceptible footsteps, moving across the wooden planks on the floor. The noises got closer and closer, and I felt a cold breath on my back. I turned around immediately, but there was nothing but deep darkness. The feeling of being watched doesn't let me go. Even when I stepped outside, the atmosphere felt heavy, as if every step was being watched. I began to notice a strange phenomenon, images flashing across my vision, shadowy figures appearing outside the window, then disappearing again as I tried to see more clearly. It feels like someone is there, just invisible, like an invisible ghost living with me in this space. I can't stop thinking about it. Again, I felt gentle whispers, seemingly coming from the walls, from the crevices of this house. I know I can't escape this place, even if I try. Every time I think I'm out, that darkness pulls me back in, drowning me in dreams, inexplicable memories, sounds that can't escape my head. Those sounds kept repeating in my head, growing louder and louder, like the call of something I couldn't understand, a presence I couldn't face. One night I stood there, my hand shaking as I held the teacup, and a heavy feeling came over me. The whispers began again, as if this house would never let me go, trying to draw me into an inexplicable spell. I turned back to look through the window, but only saw pitch-black darkness and dim lights in the distance, lonely lights in the night. I didn't know what I was going to do next, but the feeling that I was no longer myself was overwhelming my thoughts. Every sound, every vague shape pushed me away from reality, as if I was falling into an abyss that I couldn't escape from. And I know that, no matter where I run, those whispers and shadows will always follow me, not letting me have any peace. Completely out of control, the panic attack made all my senses dull. Every step I take, every second I live, is covered by an invisible presence, a darkness that cannot be described in words, but is so clear that it cannot be ignored. The steps in the hallway became an obsession, shivers running down my spine that I couldn't escape, couldn't see but still felt. I stared at the phone screen, unable to stop, my hand shaking as if someone was squeezing my wrist, forcing me to keep looking at it. The images from the security camera were blurry, but clear enough for me to see that the shadow did not belong to a person. It moved unnaturally, as if it were not a living creature, but something not of this world. That shadow is still standing there, right behind the walls, right behind the curtain of silence that I cannot touch, cannot face. My vision blurred, my heart pounded, and I couldn't lift my legs to leave that place. That presence grew stronger and stronger, filling the space around me. Soft breathing sounds echoed in my ears, an urge that made me unable to look out anymore, unable to move anymore, unable to breathe anymore. Every night, when I try to leave the shadows behind, they find a way to chase me, invading my every dream and every step. I feel like I'm living in a spiral I can't escape from. I can't tell anyone about this, can't let anyone understand, because everything is simply inexplicable. Those whispers, those shadows, they were there, just outside of sight, but always ready to invade my mind. I couldn't keep my sanity anymore. That shadow made me lose all sense of space and time. This apartment, this balcony, that warehouse, everything is like a permanent trap, with no way out. I no longer feel like I can escape it. That feeling, the pull from the dark, from the inexplicable, it all took over me. And I know that I will never be able to escape it, no matter where I run. The silence of the city that night was unlike any previous night. Everything seemed to go silent, there was no sound, just the sound of my heart beating in my chest, pounding so loudly that I could almost hear it echoing in my ears. An eerie silence enveloped the apartment, the space was so tense that I could feel it like a layer of fog surrounding me. I stood up and walked out to the balcony, as an unconscious reaction to check my apartment, to confirm to myself that this was just a dream, a delusion. But as soon as I set foot on the balcony, a cold breeze suddenly blew past, making me stop. The feeling was not the comfort of a cool summer breeze, but a numbing cold air, as if something invisible was existing right next to me. A feeling that I can't explain, but I can clearly feel it in every fiber of my being. At this moment, I heard that whisper again. Not a whistle like before, but a gentle sound, like a call from deep within the walls of the apartment. I listened, each word passing by in my ears, not clear but enough for me to realize, they were not the wind. Those were whispers, faint but very clear sounds, seemingly inviting me, luring me closer, even though I knew it was just a trap, a strange game that I couldn't escape. In just a moment, I stood there, the streetlight shining into the apartment, creating strange shadows on the wall, seemingly watching me. The voices continued, each time softer, each time closer, as if they were creeping into my mind, and there was nothing I could do to stop them. I couldn't understand why I stood there, feeling the urge to walk out, but part of me knew clearly that if I did, I would never be the same again. At that moment, I realized a terrifying truth, that shadow, those sounds, were not a nightmare or my imagination. They are real. They are a presence I cannot avoid. At any moment, they could come closer, maybe even welcome me into a world I don't understand, and can't escape. Every night that passed, the nightmares continued to drag me into inexplicable darkness, but there was no way out. That cold hand, an invisible urge, wanted me to step outside. The tightening feeling around my elbow grew stronger, as if an inexplicable force was pulling me toward the edge of the balcony. My vision blurred with fatigue, but in that moment, I was acutely aware that nothing could stop me from moving towards it, even though every sense in me screamed that I shouldn't. I cannot deny this urge. My heartbeat rang in my ears, each beat like a desperate scream, but I still couldn't stop. I looked down, into the endless space of the city below, where the dim streetlights looked like distant stars. This feeling, a terrifying stillness in the darkness, made it almost impossible for me to breathe. But I couldn't turn back, even though every cell in my body wanted to run away. Suddenly, a whisper, clearer and stronger than ever, rang out from behind me, like an invitation, a calling. I couldn't make out the words, but I felt the sweetness, like an enticement, as if I was being called to enter a door I couldn't turn away from. I turned around, and in that moment, I saw it, a vague shape, indistinct, but close enough for me to feel it. All my feelings revolved around the dizziness. Numbness spread throughout my body, as if I was falling into a bottomless abyss. I can't get out, I can't go back. That feeling, that undeniable presence, enveloped me, leaving me unable to move, unable to think of a way to escape. The voices, the strange winds, everything led me to only one thing: stepping outside, towards a place where I could never return. Part of me wanted to scream, to escape this nightmare, but fear gripped me, forcing me to stand there, looking into the darkness. An inexplicable cold feeling enveloped every corner of my mind. Just one more step, I'll never go back. But that feeling, that urge, made me accept it, step into the darkness, to face this inescapable obsession. The tension in the space around me was increasing, seemingly taking over every corner of the apartment. The feeling of being watched was undeniable, every small sound, as gentle as a whisper, kept echoing in my ears every time I woke up in the middle of the night. Especially in the living room, where the picture frame has become an unstable object. Every time I glanced at it, the faint silhouette behind the poster made me feel like there was something waiting for me, quietly but inevitably. The light in the room also became strange, the light on the ceiling stuttered and flickered continuously, making everything around me even more dim. My heart is getting heavier and heavier, as if something invisible is squeezing me, not giving me comfort. The nightmares, the shadowy shapes in my sleep, all continued, surrounding me like a never-ending loop. I started to get scared even when I looked into the living room, afraid to face the shadow I couldn't identify. It feels like there's an invisible hand running across my back every time I pass by there. I tried to ignore it, but the more I tried to forget it, the clearer the feeling became. The voices continued to whisper, word by word, incomprehensible, but making me feel like I was being drawn into something inevitable. Even when I tried to cut all ties with the apartment, when I thought I had left, that strange presence still clung to me. It was an unforgettable feeling, the feeling of a shadow always near, always staring at me, no matter where I avoided it. It's like an eternal existence that I can't escape from. Worse. That feeling clung to me like a ghost, as if the frame were not just an inanimate object, but a window into another world, one I could neither understand nor control. Every time I look at the silhouette in the frame, I feel a cold air blowing through me, making me feel like I'm being watched every second of every moment. I have tried many ways to solve this problem, from closing the windows tightly, locking all the nooks and crannies, to trying to pretend like nothing happened. But the fear still exists, smoldering like an underground wave that will never subside. Sometimes, I wake up in the middle of the night, my heart racing, in a cold sweat, and a light tapping sound coming from somewhere in the apartment. I knew for sure it wasn't the wind or the normal sounds from this old house. It was something else, a presence that I couldn't explain, that I couldn't escape. Every step I took, every time I turned to look at the picture frame hidden in the box, I felt a strange anticipation, an insistence that something was still there. No matter what I did, no matter how much I stayed away, that feeling stuck with me, as if it was not just a part of the house, but a part of myself, a shadow I couldn't banish. And then, one night, as I was getting ready to go to sleep, the light from the ceiling lamp flickered unusually, startling me awake. The light knock sounded again. I couldn't help thinking that this time, maybe it was ready to reveal itself, and when I looked back at the frame, I knew I had no control anymore. Everything began to go beyond my imagination, and I could only stand there, facing the thing I had been trying to avoid. I couldn't stop. As if an invisible wave was washing it away. That feeling overwhelmed me again, fear rising within me in waves, making me feel the space around me becoming more and more cramped, as if everything was tightening around me. I knew that the atmosphere in the room was changing, but I couldn't understand why. My heart beat faster, my breathing was short and rapid, I felt like I was being watched from every angle. The phone rang again, this time a long, soft ring as if trying to find my attention. I didn't dare pick up the receiver right away, but finally, with a faint determination, I raised my hand again and picked up the receiver, feeling heavy like an invisible burden pressing down on me. Again there was silence. But this time, unlike the previous times, I felt a presence from the other side, not a mere silence but a presence. An exhale, soft and broken, as if someone was standing right behind me. I couldn't hear it clearly but felt it at a deep level in my mind. That breathing sound was not like any human breathing sound, it had a difference, an unusual sound quality that I couldn't grasp. Cold sweat rose, my body went numb. Part of me wanted to drop the stethoscope and run away, but another part forced me to stay, to find out the truth behind those whispers. I told myself that maybe this was just a coincidence, a hallucination caused by stress, but my heart, my body, the sensations I couldn't deny made me feel that something wasn't right. This time, I can no longer pretend. Even though I turned off my phone, even though I unplugged all connections, a part of me knew that something had crossed the line between reason and reality. The feeling of discomfort, the anxiety, kept growing, as if I was being pulled into a world I had no control over, a world I never asked to enter. Insecurity took over me. I can't escape that feeling, the feeling of being watched, the feeling that something or someone is always around me, always waiting for me, always there, no matter what I do. Those whispers, those shadowy figures still linger in my mind. I couldn't understand and didn't know what to do. It's not due to fatigue or stress. This cannot be just imagination. I feel like every time I hear the phone ring, it's a reminder of some inexplicable presence lurking in my office. I couldn't deny the feeling that I was being watched, even though my mind tried to convince me that it was all a product of anxiety, sleepless nights, and excessive stress. The feeling of fear made me unable to calm down. Every time I walked into the office, even though the light was shining, I still felt like the air was stagnant, as if something had come inside, waiting for me. I could even feel the change in the air when I stood at the door. The damp smell of the space, the eerie silence, and the darkness that covered the corners of the room created a thick atmosphere that made it hard to breathe. The phone rang again, and this time I noticed a change in the sound. No longer were the bells sudden and interrupted, but a gentle rhythm, as if waiting for me to answer. I picked up the receiver again, my hand shaking, and I heard a soft breath as if from the other side, but there were no words, just a vague sound, like a tentative whisper. I couldn't breathe, and a cold feeling rose inside me. It's not that I'm losing my mind. This is not due to stress or anxiety. I could feel that presence clearly. It is not just a feeling, but an entity. And the more I stay away from it, the more I feel like I'm caught up in it, unable to escape. As I stood there in the dark, I no longer felt my safety. Everything around me seemed blurry, as if I was drifting in a space I had no control over. And then I started to realize that I couldn't just hide forever. That shadow, that presence, it was starting to cling to me, and I knew I couldn't keep avoiding it. Reality slowly disintegrated before my eyes, and I couldn't distinguish between reality and nightmares. Strange things, inexplicable feelings, they became clearer and clearer, forcing me to face them. Seemed to be immersed in a terrifying silence. Everything around me seemed silent, only the sound of running water and strange creaking remained. A chill spread throughout my body as I realized that the sound of running water was not coming from the faucet or from a source I could explain. It came from somewhere in the house, something distant and elusive. The coldness in the air seemed to grip me tightly, and a heavy feeling filled the space. My hands trembled as I strained to listen, trying to find the source of the sound. Even though the room was still dim, I could clearly feel an invisible presence, as if a ghost was standing right next to me, silently watching my every move. I can't explain this feeling, but it's very real, very clear. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it beating in my ears, the waves of adrenaline rising, and I couldn't stop worrying. My mind told me that it was just fatigue, stress, but my body knew clearly that there was something else, something supernatural, present right in this house. I began to feel like I was trapped in a haunting game, where every step, every silence, was part of an incomprehensible story. And the phone, that phone, seemed to be the key, the connection between my world and something I couldn't explain. Every call, every strange sound, adds to the feeling of not being able to escape. No matter how hard I tried, I couldn't shake the feeling that something wrong was happening, something that was gradually tying me to this space, to inaudible sounds, to inexplicable phenomena. I began to wonder if I was living in a dream, or if this house, with all its mysteries and strange sounds, was a never-ending nightmare. But I know one thing for sure: every time the clock strikes 2 a.m., when those bells ring, I fall into a state of panic, an uncontrollable insecurity. And no matter how much I want to control everything, I cannot escape the fact that there are things beyond my control, invisible and scary things, waiting for me behind these walls. I became unstable, the nightmares continued at night, and every time I woke up, a feeling of fear rose in my heart. I clearly felt the tension in my body, the rapid heartbeat and slight pain in my muscles, as if the fatigue could not escape my body, as if those nightmares were not just a part of sleep, but a part of reality, haunting me every waking moment. Every night, that sound of running water and rubbing comes back. I cannot explain what is happening. There are times when I try to convince myself that it's just my imagination, that I'm too stressed and tired. But then I couldn't ignore that strange feeling, the feeling that I wasn't completely alone in this house, that something invisible was lurking around me. I couldn't stop the urge to check every corner of the house every time I heard those strange sounds. I opened the door to the living room, where the bathroom sink was still clean and showed no signs of any changes, but the strange feeling still didn't let me go. Every time I open the door, I feel a slight warmth in the air, as if someone has just left, leaving behind an invisible presence. Every phone call, every vague sound, it all makes me feel like I'm living in a never-ending nightmare. Calls coming in the middle of the night, strange breathing sounds through the receiver, unexplained sounds of running water, all of these things make it impossible for me to find peace in my own home. I felt like I was slowly being pulled into a long nightmare, where my reason began to waver and invisible feelings became undeniable. Not just because of the strangeness of the phenomena I was experiencing, but because of the feeling that there was something else going on in this house. Something that may never be explained, but is definitely present, always silently watching and following me. I don't know how much longer I can endure, whether I can continue to live in this confusion and anxiety with no way out. But there is one thing I know for sure: I cannot escape that presence. No matter where I ran, no matter how much I tried to stop it, it was still there, waiting for me in the dark. In the past, but now, all that remains is an abandoned place, full of traces of silence and darkness. When I entered that space, I felt something change within me. An undeniable feeling of unease, some force, though invisible, was still present and pervaded the space, as if the walls had absorbed all that had happened in the past. Every night, the strange sounds returned, like sighs from another world. The sounds were gentle but clear enough to startle me. Soft tapping sounds in the distance, the rubbing sound of something unrecognizable, all repeated over and over until I could no longer determine the boundary between dream and reality. It felt as if this house itself had become a living thing, an existence I couldn't explain, as if it was searching for something in me, something I couldn't escape. The evenings passed in anxiety and confusion, the feeling of fear did not diminish. Every time I tried to calm down, the light from the floor lamp cast strange shadows on the wall, and every time I stepped out of the room, this silence enveloped me, making me feel like I was being watched. The long nights, the racing thoughts, and the undefined feeling of that presence kept me from finding peace. Finally, I realized that I couldn't live like that anymore. The feeling of fear has crept into every corner of my mind, making it impossible for me to shake off this feeling. I decided to face it, to face what was haunting me. But no matter how hard I tried, that feeling couldn't be chased away. It stayed inside me, in the house, as if this space had become a part of me, and I couldn't escape it. Having the courage to go back into that attic, I knew I couldn't hide anymore. That feeling, this strange presence that I couldn't explain, clung to me. The last time I went up there, I felt like I was facing an invisible entity, something buried in the darkness of this house. The names engraved on the pieces of wood were obvious, and my name, this was strange. How could there be a piece of wood engraved with my name, in a place I had never been to before? Everything seemed inexplicable, but that's why I couldn't leave without understanding. I quietly moved through the old wooden stairs, feeling like my every step was causing slow, annoying echoes in my mind. It was as if this house could sense my presence, and I began to feel something strange waiting, something that couldn't be denied. I turned back to look at the attic, where the dim light of the lamp was still on. But this time, I don't dare let everything pass by unconsciously. I stood in front of the attic door, my hand holding the door handle tightly, feeling cold on my skin. The door didn't squeak, didn't protest, and I entered, once again facing this space that I couldn't explain. My feelings were filled with tension, as if something was waiting to reveal itself. I can't leave here without finding the answer. In the midst of that dark space, faint memories, engraved names, and strange sounds were firmly stuck in my head. That night, I decided to face what was happening, no matter the cost. The faint shadow in this room, the stuffy air, all pushed me to the brink of insurmountable fear. I have to figure it all out, even if it may be a journey into the unexplainable. I can't deny what I'm feeling. Footsteps echoed from somewhere in the darkness, whether I tried to interpret them as a coincidence or a play of the imagination. But when the sounds repeated the next night, I knew it couldn't be just a coincidence. Each step sounded clearer and closer, making me unable to avoid the feeling that something, or someone, was watching me from the darkness. One night, I couldn't stand it anymore. I decided to find out what was really going on. I stood still, listening to each sound, trying to determine their origin. The whole room was so silent that only the sound of my heart beating was in my ears. Then, once again, the footsteps sounded, but this time, they didn't stop. They came closer, and I felt a presence behind me. My heart pounded, I turned around, but no one was there. All I saw was darkness, long shadows under the weak light of the lamp. I bit my lip, trying to stay calm, but the coldness that enveloped my body made me feel as if I had fallen into another world. Something, or someone, is hiding in the shadows, watching and waiting for an opportunity. This feeling keeps haunting me every night, making it impossible for me to sleep. Even though I tried to find explanations and reasons for those strange sounds and unclear presences, every time I faced them, I felt like I was falling into a bottomless pit. Sounds, footsteps, and sometimes inexplicable whispers, follow me all the time. I couldn't keep living like this, I couldn't live forever in this fear, but just when I thought I was ready to face it, I was caught in an endless loop of bizarre, inexplicable experiences. It seemed like there was some invisible force pulling me closer to it. Sometimes I even felt like I couldn't leave this place even if I wanted to. The only thing I know for sure is that I can't shake that feeling. The footsteps continued, the sound still echoed in the darkness, and I couldn't escape this haunting. Crept into our minds. Those stories, although told in a gentle tone, could not hide the true anxiety. Part of us couldn't help but feel a vague presence, an inexplicable feeling that something was watching us from the shadows. The atmosphere in the warehouse was always heavy and tense, and no matter how much we tried to explain these strange phenomena, they stuck with us like a reminder that something was wrong. Every night, when I returned to work, I felt a growing fear, as my footsteps echoed down the long, empty hallway. I can't stop thinking about the times I saw fleeting shadows, or the strange noises that startled me every time the lights flickered. I tried to tell myself it was just fatigue or the normal noises of an old building, but the feeling of uneasiness continued to haunt me. One night, when I had to work late again, I stood near the high shelves, clearly feeling my gasps in the silence. Suddenly, I heard strange footsteps, like someone was walking through the shelves behind me. I turned around, but there was no one there, only empty space, making me feel heavier than ever. The whispering continued to haunt me. Every time I was there I felt a presence, not of a person, but of something else, not of this world. The stories my colleagues told me as reassurance could not make me feel at ease. A few times, I tried searching for the source of the sounds, but all I got was emptiness and an inexplicable feeling of fear. Those long nights, when I sat alone in the building, I couldn't shake the feeling that I wasn't alone. Something is always watching me, lurking in the darkness of empty space. No matter how I tried to explain it, I couldn't deny that something beyond my ability to explain existed there, in this old building, among the shadows and the constant whispers. Although we may never know all the secrets in that house, each story opens a new door, leading us to profound contemplations about life and existence. If you feel something special, please share your thoughts with me in the comments section. And don't forget to subscribe to continue accompanying mysterious stories in the future. Wishing you a peaceful night, full of beautiful dreams, and remember that, sometimes, mysteries are just the beginning of an exciting journey.